All right. Are you ready to rumble? Dude, I am so excited. This is like fight night. God, this is exciting. Let's see who's up here already. I know you guys are ready too. What up, Reverend? Woke Mike, Dark Cash, all the cool people. All the cool people are here. What have you guys been voting in the poll? Let's see what you guys have been voting on the poll. This is pre-fight too, so we got a little time. Yes? Okay, first of all, Reverend. Okay, first of all, the last time that we did a debate, the reason that it didn't work out so well at the beginning, only at the beginning and the middle, and a little bit at the end too, was because I was trying to stream the stream of a stream. And I've never done that before because I'm not a professional. But this time I think we're going to be okay. We have had problems in the past. I think the first time we tried to stream a debate, I didn't know I wasn't allowed to stream YouTube TV, which, yeah, sure, okay. Seems like a no-brainer. Seems like something I should have known. But I'm an old man, okay? Tech failures are well within my wheelhouse as being an old, bald white dude, okay? Completely within, okay? All right? Shut up, Bob. Bob's always here right at the beginning to just get me. He gets me going. Bob's like my MAGA heroine. He shows up, I take a hit, and then I chase the dragon for the rest of the show. Dude, Tim Walz is about to absolutely destroy your boy. God, this is just like Fight Night. This is like when you back in the day. This will just tell you guys how old I am. This is like when Rich Franklin would fight the Iceman. Okay, when Tito Ortiz would also fight the Iceman. Anderson Silva, when Anderson Silva would get in the ring. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Tia, what's up, Tia? Oh man, you know what's about to happen? They're eating the dogs. That's what's about to happen, guys. Dude, what do you guys think? Do you guys think I missed anything in the poll? Like, I was thinking about this. Like, JD Vance, if JD Vance didn't have Trump, right? JD Vance could possibly try to just be a politician. And I know that's probably what the right was hoping for, was that JD Vance brings along some type of, like, sanity to the Trump-Vance ticket. Like, that was his hope. Their hope, right? But what really ended up happening, instead, what ended up happening was JD Vance ended up getting cuckolded into the presidential ticket because now he's just watching Donald Trump just out of his party, just right in front of him. Because he didn't know. I don't think J.D. Vance fully understood, which is stupid because he talked a lot of trash about Trump before he got in here, right? But I don't think he truly knew going into this that he was going to have to come up here and defend the crazy stuff that Donald Trump has to say. Can you imagine being just like an everyday politician? Like if you were Mike Pence back in the day, like Mike Pence kind of actually had an easy job, right? Because like, Trump was new. It wasn't that crazy. Like, you know, people were kind of laughing at the stuff he was saying. He hadn't built up a library of crazy, weird stuff he had said yet, right? Right? Like, he hadn't yet. So Mike Pence kind of had, like, an easy job. He just kind of shrugged his shoulders and went, yeah, you know, he says something crazy every once in a while. But J.D. Vance has to, like, he has to actually, like, back it up, right? Like, J.D. Vance has to actually, like, step in there and they're like, so, we heard they're eating the dogs? And he's like, you know, we make stuff up. That's what we do over here, okay? Can you just, like, I want to imagine that there's still an actual human being inside of J.D. Vance somewhere. Probably not, but I'd like to imagine it, you know? We make stuff up. That, like, dies a little bit inside when somebody mentions to him something that Donald Trump said. Like, he's like, fuck. Here we go again. Gonna have to explain away another dumb thing that the former president said, because this is my only chance to possibly be somewhere close to sniffing the office of the president. Like, I don't feel any sympathy for J.D. Vance, but I do think that, like, it's got to be kind of a weird job. That every time that you get in front of a bunch of reporters and you've seen the TYT videos, you've seen the Brian Tyler Cohen videos, you've seen the people debating whether or not you're a moron or the guy that you're running with is a moron. And you're like, as soon as you get in front of those reporters, you're like, God damn it, man. Here we go. They're going to ask me about eating the dogs. I know they're going to, yep, there it is. All right. There it is. Tia, you are, Tia, three times the thanks, Tia. I appreciate you so much, Tia. Don't forget to like the stream. Tia's doing it 3 times. You guys can do it once, okay? Ours wife, Cajun. All the cool people showing up tonight. All right. I am jacked. I am so ready for this. Yeah, I have an hour before it starts because we're pre-gaming tonight, woke. Trump news shot in Discord. No, we're going to watch that video in the pre-game. Hope you guys are ready for that. We're going to pre-game a little bit. We're going to pre-game for the debate with a little Randy Rainbow. A little 6,000-pound naked Trump statue. Okay, also. All right. And we're going to... What else do we have here? We also have longtime Republican deals bad news to Vance ahead of debate, which we should probably just watch that right at the bat. You know, this is the closest I'm ever going to get to Brian Tyler Cohen. And, you know, I'm just thankful. Blop! I did see something from you in the Discord just recently, Blop. Welcome back. Junior, what up, Junior? Nana, what's going on, Nana? Like I said, all the best people. They're all here tonight. We're growing, guys. We're over 17K subscribers. The newest video, the cut-up video about the Trump stamp on the forehead, doing real well. I think we're at like 30K views right now, 1,400 likes. I'm just here. You guys do all the hard work. All the heavy lifting is the subscribers and your awesomeness. I mean, no one shows up for me. They show up for Woke Mike. They show up for Ours Wife. They show up for Dark Cash. Okay? They don't show up for me. All right? They're here for you guys. I'm just a dude on a microphone. All right? But that one's doing good. The Tim Miller, Brian Tyler Cohen that we reviewed, also doing well. I keep seeing Golf Marine in the comments. I love you, Golf. I hopped in the Dude, what is it? Doode, Dude, last night, and saw a lot of apples in there. It's always good to see you guys. Saw goat nuts in there. Always good to see you guys when every once in a while I hop into some of the chats of the other people doing this kind of stuff, and I love to see you guys on there. Makes me feel good to get recognized. You know, it's kind of cool. It's fucking cool. It's pretty cool. And just so you guys know, I posted a different person. His name is Carbon, who did his first YouTube stream last night. Apparently, I think he is a pretty good dude, big dude on Twitch. I don't know if he's big or not, but he seems like he should be. And watched a really cool conversation. Apparently, there are communists out there. My eyes are being opened, guys. But apparently there are still people that are communists. So I didn't know that was really actually a thing. I thought when people call me commie, that I didn't know that there were other commies. I don't know. Maybe I'm a commie now. After listening to the girl last night, I don't think I am. She wasn't my style. But it was a cool conversation. Carbon really knows his stuff. Very educated. Very well researched. Very quick on the tip with it. Like, dude was on the ball. And he had a couple people, MAGA Republicans, come in to talk to him. They lasted a very short while, as they often do. You know, they spin their load pretty quickly. They just drop everything that they think in the first 30 seconds and then lose almost immediately. The crazy thing is when you watch Dude, when you watch Carbon, when you watch any of these guys, Parker, that like to debate, 99% of the people in chat that talk trash never want to get on a mic and talk to these guys. And even when they do, it doesn't go well. It's insane to know that the majority of people that believe the shit that they believe they hold no weight anytime they end up in one of these debates. It's pretty crazy. What up, Paul? What up, Rocket? Is Walz another Cheney? Dude, Rocket, what are you smoking, dog? What are you smoking? Is Walz another Cheney? Are you trying to say, like, Walz is going to be the president? Y'all, you know what? You conspiracy theorists, you guys really trip me out. I love you guys, because you guys make this spicy. You make the chat and life, reality, spicy. But y'all think some crazy stuff. Is Walz Cheney? What are you just like? Are you comparing him because he's old and white? I mean, then I'm Cheney, I guess. Don't clip that. JD is gonna have that top shelf waterproof Urban Decay eyeliner on tonight. For real though, Ars. For real though. All right. So let's. We got to get to this. Should we watch the Randy Rainbow one for Bob? Is that the one we should start to? Oh, a warmonger. Tim Walz is. Hold on. You guys got to get your stories straight. He's either a guy that dodged war or a guy that likes war. You guys see, this is the problem with all of you guys is like I never know where you guys are coming from because you guys switch your debate tactics. You're like, this week he likes war, next week he hates war. You guys crack me up though. Okay, here we go. Tattooed eyeliner. You think that's what's going on, Nana? Yeah. Having 3 channels open, Reverend. Good job. We gotta support our people. I was about to have Adam Mockler up in the background just so I could have Adam because I gotta support my guy. All right. Let's start it off. We gotta get that. We've only got 51 minutes, so I can't talk too long. Okay. You guys know that I'll just talk until it happens. Oh man. Did you guys know that one of JD's kids is named Vivek? I didn't know that. The things I'm learning. Let's start the tailgate off. I hope you guys brought your beverages, your stimulants of choice, okay? Because this is the pregame. This is like going to an Oakland Raiders game, okay? Might be even a Buffalo Bills game. Someone might jump through a table. I'm pretty hype on this, okay? Like, we all know that after the Biden-Trump debate, that was like watching a fighter have a bad night, and you're like, uh-oh. Is this what my year's gonna be like? Is this is the guy that I love and he had a bad night? Is this what my year's gonna be like? And then Kamala came in the second round and gave us the most hope that a person could possibly have. And Tim Walz is about to go full Mortal Kombat on JD Vance tonight, and he's gonna finish him. There's gonna be spine out. There's gonna be a heart beating in a hand, fire. It's gonna be amazing. So we gotta get it started right. Catherine, damn right, it's Randy. Bucket's here. I said all the greatest people are gonna be here tonight, guys. I told you guys. Hope you guys are ready for this. Let's start a night off right. Let's get some Randy Rainbow in the chat. Okay? Let's get some Randy Rainbow on the video screen. Here we go, boys. Helps to not have it muted, guys. Just want you guys to know that.
Welcome to tonight's presidential debate. I'm Randy Elizabeth Rainbow.
Okay, hold on. Actually, before we start the Randy Rainbow, I have to say one thing to you, Dark Cash. Okay. Amon St. Brown did a great job. You said that defense was going to do good, Dark Cash. You know how I lost this week, Dark Cash? Actually, my team with Amon St. Brown actually did win. I'm 2-2 in that league. But you want to know how I lost in my other league? I was up by almost 40 points, Dark Cash. And your boys gave up 32 points to Kenneth Walker and another 12 points to DK Metcalf. I was up 40 points. Dark Cash, and that defense, I know they won. I know you're happy. But as far as fantasy football goes, Dark Cash, what the hell, brother? Somebody give them a call and tell them not to give up 40 points to DK Metcalf and Kenneth Walker. God damn it. You know I'm 0-4 in that league now? God, I was like, I'm finally going to win a game in this league. And the Lions just fucking open the doors. Just open the doors. All right, here we go. For reals this time. For reals this. I had to get that out because that was gonna
Welcome
be
to tonight's presidential debate. I'm Randy Elizabeth Rainbow. We have asked both candidates to prepare 16 bars of an up-tempo and a ballad, as well as a comedic monologue. But first, election-y stuff. No question has been shared with either campaign, and per his celebrity rider, a panic button has been installed in Mr. Trump's podium in case he gets scared.
Thank you.
And now the completely fair and unbiased questions. Vice President Kamala Harris. I love your blouse. Where'd you get it?
Let's talk about this.
What she says is an absolute lie.
Oh, so sorry. That sound means I'm bored. Here's a quick word from our sponsor. Now listen, I know we were all pretty baffled when Trump threw out that wild cat and dog story during the September debate. I mean, what even was that? I was just as clueless as you until I consulted my trusty source of sanity, Ground News. My favorite and only sponsor. If that doesn't tell you how much I trust them, I don't know what will. This story was circulating on right-leaning news sites days before the debate, and I could see it in the Ground News blind spot feed. And let me tell you something, the blind spot feed, that's my personal favorite. It serves up debate, and I could see...
What is up with that picture that they chose? What is this actually on Ground News, or did Randy Rainbow pick that picture? Why would you pick that picture? I mean, I guess it's a story about Haitian.
See it in the Ground News blind spot. I don't know what will. This story was circulating on right-leaning news sites days before the debate, and I could see it in the Ground News blind spot feed. And let me tell you something, the blind spot feed, that's my personal favorite. It serves up stories that are disproportionately covered by one side of the political spectrum, so I immediately know to be on high alert for BS. It helped me understand where Trump got this crazy idea. Oh my God, did I just learn how to speak MAGA? We are all guilty of falling into our comfy, cozy little echo chambers and nodding along while sipping our tea without ever getting the whole picture. That's why I love Ground News. They help you make sense of media coverage by gathering related articles in one place so that you can compare reporting and get to the facts. So why not do yourself a favor? Use my link, ground.news/Randy, and snatch up 40% off unlimited access with the Vantage plan. Trust me, it'll get you prepped and ready for all the drama headed our way. It's my go-to, and I'm sure it's about to be yours too.
There's like two people that I will play their commercials because they actually do a really good job. Luke Beasley always baits me. I don't even know we're going in the commercial. Boom, we're in the commercial. I'm like, oh my God, how did I get here? All right, and Randy Rainbow's just hilarious.
And I'm sure it's about to be yours too. Thanks, Ground News. Mr. Former Fake President Girl, sir, you have been critical of your opponent's immigration record. Would you care to elaborate by making up some crazy-ass bullshit?
Crime is down all over the world except here. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it.
Oh, no, please don't.
In Springfield...
Oh, God, he's gone.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats.
Nice.
They're eating...
Can someone call me an Uber?
They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
Oh, yeah.
You're still talking, don't know why. You say so many stupid ass things. Ain't it nutty how you lie? So I'll be fired to you, but oh my God, you're still here. Must we do this year after year? You give me diarrhea. Petty, nonsense, faceless claims. Immigrants eating puppies and geese. Pushing garbage, playing games. Got more tall tales than bankruptcies. Hey girl, you okay? Do you believe a word you say? Can't we stop this charade?
Dude, this is some type of stuff that's gonna be around for like 20 years, dude. Like they're eating the dogs. Like Donald Trump has made viral internet content that, in my opinion, will last a lifetime. It's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece, guys.
Hey girl, you okay? Do you believe a word you say? Can't we stop this charade? Cause we've been trying to ditch you for damn near a decade. Is this friggin' guy for real, y'all? Psychologically, he's declined. Sure, his rally crowds are real small, but so's his tiny mind. Had enough of both these whack jobs, baiting the far right fringe, spouting off on cats and black jobs.
God, dude, there's so many good Trump quotes, so many dumb things he said that I like literally forget about them. I need to like compile like a Google sheet. I need a Google document with all the dumb shit that Trump has said. When I was in Dude's chat the other day, last night, I linked the Donald Trump talking about Hannibal Lecter endorsing him quote, where he said, "I love Trump." He says, no matter what that guy says, I love him because he said, "I love Trump." The Black Jobs one. I forgot about the Black Jobs interview with the National Association of Black Journalists. God, that was a banger too. There's so many guys.
My friends,
So many.
off on cats and black jobs. Could they be more cringe? And it's gonna be November, and he's gonna demand recounts. He'll start accusing his contender, whose name he can't pronounce.
Kamala.
Got a long list of convictions he simply can't explain, 'cause he's got a blank space, baby.
Thank you.
And it's in his brain.
Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison.
Chaos, hatred, double speak. I can read you like a MAGA queen. Doing indictments every week. Dancing around like a jerk, bitch. Please calm down just a bit. You're unhinged, you're unfit, and you can't golf for shit.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Screaming, sweating, farting, ew. He can sure make a stomach turn. Will he stage another kill? Sorry, Donald, please pardon me if I start to yawn. I'm so tired of this old con. We can't wait till you're gone. 'Cause honey, you're a schmuck and you sound like a moron. Soon it's gonna be November, and we're gonna get the final say. Better get your act together, or he's gonna take your rights away. Got our foreign rivals rooting. He'd be their Christmas gift, 'cause he loves Kim Jong and Putin, but hates Taylor Swift. Doesn't care about the law, though. His criminality's off the scale. Send him back to Mar-a-Lago until it's time for jail. I can't wait to cast my ballot. So tired of playing his game. When I see a blank space, baby, I won't check his name. Boy only tells lies about the border. He's got a personality disorder.
God. Do you guys think when I was a kid there was all the the CDs, right? When I was a kid, we had the CDs, okay? The CDs. And it was like Adam Sandler or like Dane Cook had a CD, right? Like, do you think that there's going to be like they should have like a compilation album of Donald Trump's greatest hits? Like, and I don't mean like he should have that, so please don't steal that idea, Donald Trump. Donald Trump already took the Trump box from me, probably. Also, probably the social media idea where it sends Trump supporters to a dark room where they don't know that they're yelling into the void, a la YouTube. That would be great. Don't steal either one of those ideas. But also, Donald Trump's greatest hits. They're eating the dogs. Transgender immigrant surgeries. Dude, there's so many good ones. Taking the black jobs. There's so many good ones. I think I might compile a top 10 greatest hits from Donald Trump. I think that might be the next video, guys. That might be the next video.
Space, baby, I won't check his name. Boy only tells lies about the border. He's got a personality disorder.
Another lie.
Boy only tells lies about the border.
They're eating the pets.
He's got a
Well, I gotta limit it
personality
to sarcasm.
disorder.
I mean, the video will be like 2 hours long.
I'm so bored of his washed up shtick. Sure his
Read off
belly
knows
cries
what
are
I'm
real
talking
small, but so's his tiny hands. Got himself a fierce opponent. He can't pronounce her name.
Kamala.
I'd rather lie than own it when he gets the blame. It's gonna be November. Are we gonna vote lies or truth? don't forget to remember when you're all up in that booze. He's a narcissistic weirdo, unqualified profane.
Excuse me.
Low IQ, hot-headed nut job, an orange pico stain. Just a crazed convicted felon, unstable, inhumane. Very aching, awkward screwball, idiotic and inane. Giant autocratic toddler, and clinically insane.
Randy's like, I can do
He's
this
got a
all
blank
night.
space, baby.
Thank you.
And it's in his brain.
Dude, Randy is the
They're
best.
eating the pets.
Please don't.
If you guys, I know most of you guys are definitely subscribed to Randy Rainbow. That first Dane Cook CD was good, Redonk. It was. I thought it was great. If I go back and listen to it now, it's probably terrible because I'm pretty sure I was high that whole time. But that Adam Sandler, the goat skit, dude. There's like two. I think one of those, you might be right, Reverend. One of those was probably on cassette, to be honest with you. Guys, I've touched an 8-track, all right? When I was really young, the 8-tracks were still happening, okay? Like, you could go to a Goodwill and get you one of those big square 8-tracks. That's how old I am. I would like to think that technology just advanced so fast that we went 8-track, cassette, CD, MP3 so fast that it hasn't really been that long. But let's just be honest, guys. It was like 97 years ago. I'm pretty sure that I have touched a Creedence Clearwater Revival 8-track in my life. Pretty sure of that. If you guys have not, I've been in a car with an 8-track player too, just so you guys know. If you guys haven't gone and subbed and liked and shared Randy Rainbow's videos, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? So I see you guys keep talking about it, so we're gonna play it. What do we got? We got 25. We got about 30 minutes until showtime, boys. I also think that they should start introducing candidates to the stage like fighters as well. I want Tim Walz to come out to like some Eminem, and I think JD Vance should probably come out to some Kid Rock, right? Like, I mean, that's just one really good white rapper and one really shitty, terrible, burnt out tweaker ass, smells like gasoline and half smoked cigarettes in his pocket Kid Rock. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I think that we should have in our life. Is that this is the type of hype that we should be on right now. Is like Tim Walz coming out to Lose Yourself. Well, he's from Minnesota. Maybe Tim Walz comes out to When Doves Cry. He's from Minnesota, so maybe he comes out to some Prince instead. Some Prince would be pretty dope, okay? I think so. Some Purple Rain. Redonk says, I had a couple tapes as a young kid, but most of my music experience was on burned CDs. Yeah, we used to walk around Foreigner, Dark Cash, Foreigner. I was telling my kid this the other day. We used to walk around with backpacks, right? And we had the backpacks, and they'd be filled with tapes. And all the tapes, like, so for poor kids, what we do, well, I don't know, you guys might have done this too. We'd stick paper inside the little slots on the top of the cassette tapes, because that's all that was stopping you from recording over. So when you couldn't afford to go down to the warehouse music store and buy yourself that 8-pack of the blank cassette tapes, so that way you could record whatever music, because you'd have that stereo that had the 2 cassette players, and you'd start the one and press record on the other. You guys remember that? Well, when you didn't have the money for the blank tapes, you put paper in the little top parts, so that way you could record over your mom's cassette tapes that you had stolen the night before. Okay, I'd never do that, but we did that, all right? And then we'd put them in backpacks, and we'd walk around with them all the time, because you never knew when your chance was, where you got to somebody's house that you'd walk for like 2 hours to get to, because no one I knew like really actually had a vehicle. We're poor, okay? When we got there, it was your chance. Like, you wanted to put in your Green Day tape, your buddy wanted to put in his Offspring tape. You're like fucking fighting for it, right? Yeah, like that's what we used to do. My kid was like, boy, your life must have sucked. Copying the radio songs. Exactly, Redonk. Like, you'd be up, you'd just be waiting for it to come on. You'd be so mad. You'd be so mad when they play like the song you've been waiting for this whole time. You're like, Insomniac, I want Insomniac. And they play it and you go to start it and it wouldn't start. And you're like, oh, I missed it. Oh, it was the worst. It was the worst. I'm never going to get to the video. You're right. Okay. All right, here we go. This is, oh, just by the way. Okay, so let's do this right. This is Republicans Explode in Epic Tantrum over Colossal Naked Trump Statue. And this is one of the few TYT channels that I will still watch. The damage report, still pretty dope. I like John. I can't say his last name. So I like the damage report. It's pretty, I still like this guy. So here we go.
MAGA believe that they've uncovered the latest Democrat attempt to inspire political violence against Donald Trump, and this one is a big one. 43 feet tall, actually. Take a look. We're going to start zoomed in on this absolutely massive naked statue of Donald Trump in marionette form. Marionettes don't get as much play as they used.
All right, somebody tell me, because all I've seen is from his little fupa. From his little fupa up, okay? Like, I haven't seen, like, was it full frontal? Was it, you know what I'm saying, explicit? Was it XXX? Because can you imagine driving through the Las Vegas desert, high on some mushrooms, and you look over and you see Trump dong? That's an experience you don't recover from. I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. Like, that's the kind of thing that will definitely change your whole state of mind. I'm just asking for a friend because I don't want to look it up. I don't want to Google was Trump dong
used
on
to
the statue.
marionette form. Marionettes don't get as much play as they used to in our culture, but I enjoy them. But anyway, that's hanging out outside Las Vegas, pretty far outside Las Vegas, admittedly, but it's a 43-foot tall, totally nude, and I'm gonna say probably pretty accurate statue of Donald Trump. Now, we're gonna show you this art because we care about art here on TDR,
like
but understand that MAGA is not happy about this at all for reasons that will become abundantly clear as more of the nude statue becomes abundantly clear.
Oh no!
Let's move to this next image.
No.
We have pixelated some of the parts for your safety. The image I'm looking at in my rundown is not pixelated.
Bruh. I love the belly button area, dude. Like, it looks like Trump may have had 7 kids. Maybe 10. Dude, that's way too big of a blur sign, though. That should be, even on a 43-foot tall statue, that should probably be half that size. Is that like half belly, half dong? Is that what we're seeing there? Are they actually like blurring out like the bottom of his tummy? Oh my god, that is some scary shit right now. What if that came to life, guys? What if, like, you guys remember all those movies from the 80s where the toys came to life, like Toy Story, and like that was the 80s, that was the 90s. But you guys, like Chucky, remember Child's Play? What if they made a Child's Play movie for the Donald Trump 43-foot, 6,000-pound naked plus dong a statue where he just terrorizes Las Vegas, and then Godzilla has to come out of the water to fight off 43-foot, 6,000-pound naked Trump doll. Dude, make that movie. Make that. Oh, Ghostbusters. That's a good call too. Oh man. Sorry.
And
Sorry,
you
Kevin.
can't my rundown is not pixelated. And you can't unsee certain things, but that is indeed a nude Trump. And then you can see here. Now, it's a marionette. Some people will see this imagery as if he was hung, like, you know, like an execution, not the other form of hung.
Okay, who's seen Attack on Titan? That's what it's reminding me of right now, guys. If you guys, I don't watch a lot of anime. I've only seen like 2 in my entire life, but I've seen Attack on Titan. This is giving me some serious Attack on Titan vibes right here. That's what I'm getting from this.
like, like an execution, not the other form of hung, obviously. but that's not what it is. It is a marionette. You can see his strings, as Pinocchio would say, or whatever. And there's one more image shot from below, which, if you're gonna shoot this statue,
is that herpes?
Don't shoot it from below would be my advice based on the image that I am seeing. But anyway, this is an art installation. It weighs about 6,000 pounds. It's made of foam and rebar.
This is not paid promotion.
6,000 pounds of foam and rebar. It is titled Crooked and Obscene and is expected to travel from outside of Las Vegas to other areas. In fact, as of this morning, it appears that it has been moved. Maybe destroyed, maybe we'll find out, but people in the Las Vegas area at MAGA were mad.
Maybe no.
We'll see if it does survive and makes it to other cities. And we don't have the actual details on what the tour is gonna look like. I'm sure it'll be angering people there too.
A storm is tearing up the digital media industry. Only our audience can save us in these difficult times. Help us reach our...
Okay, not a fan of TYT, but fan of the Damage Report, so join the Damage Report. I like him. Jank has a lot of work to do to get back into my good graces. Jank has a lot of work to do. Just gonna throw that out there. The channel is what it is. I'm an honest person. He's got a lot of work to do to get back into my good graces.
...team.
But they say, the artists, who are anonymous, because they would be getting death threats, so much right now. They say it's an anatomically correct statue. Obviously, there is some speculation as to the anatomy. And I would say, based on Stormy Daniels' testimony, I don't know that it's anatomically correct. I think it's a bit generous. But anyway, they say that it's a statement that the former president's nudity was, quote, intentional. It's a bold statement on transparency, vulnerability, and the public personas of political figures. They also say they aim to spark conversation about, quote, transparency or lack thereof in politics, challenging viewers to think critically about political influence. And I'll give my full thoughts on this as a piece of art later on. I will just say that's how every artist talks about their stuff. And you know what?
That's what I was gonna say. Is everybody's like you're like, wait, what were you thinking when you made that? And an artist is like, well, what do you think I was thinking? Like, well, I don't think you want to know what I think you were thinking when you made that. I think this is the one time you should probably actually be forced to tell me what you were thinking when you made that. Because this is a piece of art that I'm having a hard time deciphering what you were thinking when you made that. Tia, I have not been back on Instagram in a minute, so I will check it out. I'll get on there and check it out. Sorry for all of you guys that hit me up on social media. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys, and I do look at your messages at one point or another. But whether you're Soul on Facebook sending me messages, or Tia on Instagram, or even my own wife, who can tell you today she stabbed herself in the hand and may have called my cell phone, and I may not have gotten that phone call until an hour later. I'm not great. I'm not great with answering messages, so I do look at the stuff you guys send me. I appreciate you guys so much for trying to stay in touch and like share stuff with me. I love you guys to death. If you haven't joined the Discord, join the goddamn Discord. That's the easiest way to make me see things, because I do check that like at night. Once all of my jobs are done, I get on Discord and kind of scroll through and see what everybody posted. So if you can, that's the best way to do it. Yeah. This is why I'm not a fan of art. Good call. Good call, Catherine. Good call.
It talks about their stuff, and you know what? You can just say it. You can just say it's intended to do that. That's a thing that you can just do. But anyway, I told you that Republicans weren't happy about this, and I want to turn to this now. So Ian Miles Chong, MAGA influencer, said on Twitter, obscene libtards suffering from TDS have hanged a giant effigy of Donald Trump near Las Vegas. Again, saying it's been hanged. It's not hanged, it's a marionette. When Trump becomes president, he should jail everyone who was a part of this effigy's creation. And I love that that's just a thing that you can say as a MAGA influencer.
Yeah, just jail everyone.
Thousands of MAGA people will retweet your call for artists to be jailed. Again, free speech absolutist. Not only is he part of the MAGA movement, he's doing this on Twitter. Everything about their movement is about free speech until they don't like the art you made. Then they think you should be literally jailed for making art. But the calls for jailing is not enough for some. Amuse Boosh, I'm going to assume. Amuse Douche on Twitter says, political violence. Nevada Democrats have hung. Again, Nevada Democrats. We literally have no idea who did it. They're just going to say it's Nevada. The official Nevada Democratic Party did it. Have hung a 43-foot tall, 6,000-pound naked Donald Trump. I don't know why he has to put the stats, but saying again, in effigy. Again, it's not an effigy. The display costs $550,000, and it's designed to incite violence against and on behalf of the former president.
Wait. It's designed to incite violence against and on behalf of the former president. Is this dude making a joke? Is he saying that naked Trump just like completely divides the U.S.? Is this the jumping off point for the Civil War? Like, how bad are the history books gonna look if the jumping off point for the Second Civil War was a 43-foot tall, 6,000 pounds naked statue of Donald Trump? Look, I'm not a big fan of revisionist history, okay? Like, we all know that in school you get taught a version of history that is, we could say, not very honest, right? The Native Americans, they don't get a fair play. They don't get fair play. African Americans, a little bit better, still not exactly fair play. White people, doing great. Everything was good. We did so many good things. Boy, America wouldn't be what it was if it wasn't for all these white people. But with that being said, I'm going to be honest with you guys. If in America we fight a second civil war over a naked Trump statue and I get to write the history, I'm going to leave that part out. I'm going to be like, there was some really pertinent stuff going on at the time. There was some real controversial issues, abortion, the border, the economy. We ended up fighting about those things. There is going to be zero mention of the fact that we fought over a naked Donald Trump statue. None. Zero. Zilch. Not including it. And
it's designed to incite violence against and on behalf of the former president. No, it's literally not. Like, you can speculate, but you can't simply state that that's what it was intended to do. They have said what it's intended to do, and you might think that it's BS. I might even think that it's BS, but it's not literally designed to do that. And if you're going to state that it's designed to incite violence, which many do, could you make an argument as to how?
Yeah, please tell me how.
Why would putting Donald Trump nude mean, oh, well, I've seen him nude now and bigger than normal, so obviously he must die? Why would that be? Look, you can say it's designed to humiliate him. I speculate actually that that's what it's designed to do, to make.
I would imagine, but can you see yourself? It's like 2:30 a.m. in Vegas, and you show up at a 7-Eleven and you just ready to fight a motherfucker because you saw a naked Donald Trump. That's a weird series of events. It doesn't seem logical.
Look, you can say it's designed to humiliate him. I speculate actually that that's what it's designed to do, to make a mockery of him or whatever. But the idea that just obviously they want him dead, no, I don't think that's true at all. Now, others have different theories about the inspiration for this. Cat Turd, one of the most important people in the country, just said demons. Because never forget, these people believe that demons are real. They actually exist. And they choose what art is made or whatever. They're floating around. The demons and the dementors and the hobgoblins and the spooks are choosing what happens politically. They literally believe these things. But anyway, and then of course you have the regular MAGAists responding to this. These people are sick, mentally deranged, and should be in jail. Again, the idea that these people should be locked up is very popular on the right. Every one of these people believes that they're free speech absolutists, and they believe these artists should be in jail for the rest of their life. More calls saying it's inciting violence. They're saying it's literally a crime to make this art. The leftists must be stopped. After 2 assassination attempts, they're still happily inciting violence against Trump. Hey, Thomas Paine Band, What was the political ID of the 2 attempted assassins? Would you like to acknowledge that? Maybe like engage mentally with that for a half second? No, you want to be very vague? I think I know why. We are not this.
Amazon hates this, but there's nothing they can do to stop it. There's a new electric lighter out there, and it's got the firepower of a...
Same MAGA. What the hell? I'm not going to go through all of the actual calls for violence against leftists. We don't have time for it. But no, you're not the same, but not better. And anyway, again, they're very angry about this. Now, the Nevada Republican Party has maybe the most reasonable response out of all of these weirdos. While families drive through Las Vegas, they are forced to view this offensive marionette designed intentionally for shock value rather than meaningful dialogue. Now, that statement is not 100% accurate. You're not going to see it as you're driving through Las Vegas. It's miles and miles and miles away. But other than that, they say it's a marionette. They acknowledge that that's literally what it is. He's not being hanged in effigy. And they say it's designed for shock value rather than meaningful dialogue. And I will say, I also think that. I think it was designed for shock value rather than meaningful dialogue. I'm not going to say that the artists don't want some kind of dialogue or whatever. But you made him naked because people will pay attention. You know what you did. That's what you did. I love artists, and sometimes artists can be silly with the way they talk about the art that they made. That's just my view. I'm not an artist, other than maybe my novels about mice going on adventures. And the reason I wrote the story about a mouse going up against a magical crow was to cause people to look inward and think about class and size. No, it was a goof. And this is a goof. In fact, it's a naked goof, a 43-foot goof. But anyway, I also don't think that it's inciting violence, and the pathetic attempts to both sides, the thing that the right said, like, we should be better than this. You don't have to like it, by the way. You could even say that it shouldn't be there, that it's obscene.
I actually think that the left should probably be the one that's more upset about this.
That, cars driving by shouldn't have to see it. You could say all of those things. It's not inciting violence, and I don't think demons were involved. I think demons have bigger fish to fry. They have bigger Epsteins to fry right now than working on art.
God, I love it. Dude, I'm going with, I think it was a piñata. I'm 100% with, I think a couple dudes in Vegas that live in the desert licked a toad and made a gigantic 43-foot, 6,000-pound naked Trump piñata. And I'm gonna hit him right in the dick. I'm going right for it. It's gonna be a hard shot. It's small. It's not a big target, but right in the dick. I'm taking the family to see it, guys. I'm getting the kids, the wife. My kids are old enough. It'll be fine. God damn, that is so scary. How long we got? We got 15 minutes till showtime. Let's see what's going on over here. Uh-oh, what do we got going on? We don't like this. Hold on. That's a good thing I checked. It's a good thing I checked. We don't want any technical difficulties to start the day, okay? Buckets here. I can't be having any...
Right, the economy has been, and it continues to be the #1 issue for voters heading into this election. A recent CBS News poll shows that voters are feeling better about the economic climate as gas prices and interest rates have dropped, but 59% say the economy is still...
Yeah, well, good luck with that, with the freaking the union strikes in the ports right now. All the dock workers striking right now. Oh, God. I'm like, can we just have, like, 3 days where something crazy doesn't happen? Like, the whole, like, the hurricanes. First of all, for all my people out in Florida, North Carolina, and Georgia, stay safe. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys are safe. It's crazy out there. Over 130 dead, thousands or 1,000 missing, something like that. I don't know if it's thousands or 1,000 are missing. But crazy stuff out there. But could we go like 3 days where it was just like peaceful, just like nothing happening? Dock workers, right now, this is when you chose to strike dock workers? You guys gotta be careful. I support you guys. I love you guys. I appreciate anybody in a union. So 100% I support your cause. You deserve to get paid. Fuck whoever's making all that money, and you guys deserve to get that money. But also at the same time, could you guys have waited like, I don't know, 37 days? Like, you guys couldn't have wait like 1 more month? Man, like, God damn it. Money, Shit's about to get expensive again. Here we go again.
Of this port strike that we've been following.
Oh,
how much do you expect that to impact prices in the coming weeks and days?
Look, it's at least 25,000 union dock workers at 14 ports from Houston to Boston. They walked off the job last night at midnight, right? And according to J.P. Morgan Chase, the strike could cost the economy up to $5 billion a day. And economists worry that a longer strike would disrupt the supply chain on everything from your perishable foods to cars and construction materials. But we also know that things like fuels for home heating oil, for example, diesel gas, those are actually transported in ways that are not expected to be impacted by the strike. And according to the New York governor, Kathy Hochul, there's no need to be, running and panicking and going to the grocery store and stockpiling goods as you might have done.
Don't buy toilet paper, guys.
Sure, still these concerns coming just 5 weeks out from this election. But the other top issue on the campaign trail, how much families are struggling to cover the cost of childcare. This has been a big one in terms of talking points. Senator Vance made some headlines recently over his suggestion that grandparents should be more involved.
Yeah, Cecilia, this caught the attention of a lot of parents of young kids. This is the care economy, right? It's been a central talking point for both Vance and Walz. But here's the brutal reality. The cost of childcare is rising faster than inflation. It's almost double the rate of inflation. Both of these candidates have said they support permanently expanding the child tax credit. Harris and Walz have also said federal paid family leave would be an important priority here if they win. But again, few specifics on how long it should be. And we do know that Vance told our colleague Margaret Brennan back in August that he supports an expanded child tax credit, expanded child care options for families beyond preschool and daycare. But that grandparents comment certainly striking a chord, saying aunts and uncles should be helping out more too, Cecilia.
Yeah, Jolene, I was really struck by this next one on housing. A CBS News poll found that half of Americans aged 30 to 64,
they are children. Okay, these guys, we're waiting for the main event, guys. So let's take a look at this while we're waiting. Because this right here, this is a Republican now? What world do we live in? Dude, this is not your father's or your grandfather's Republican Party. Let's watch a little bit of this while we wait, guys. Let's watch a little bit of this while we wait. Because we got 10 minutes. I'd rather watch this person talk than those two ladies. We'll get to the main event here in a second.
You've got to bite the bullet and live in the car. You've got to save the money. There is a way to do it. It's hard. And that's why we're Americans, because things are hard.
He has called Vice President Harris a Marxist. Do you agree with that?
Honestly, I wouldn't know, but I don't really like Kamala just because of what
Kamala, right?
Kamala, yeah, what she says and stuff. I don't really agree with it.
Okay, you guys gotta tell me this: are they just trolling conservatives now by correcting them on Kamala's name? Like, it feels like at this point they're just doing it just to fuck with them.
She's trying to raise taxes, and I'm not about that because I pay taxes. I take a lot of taxes out, and it sucks.
Well, is she trying to raise taxes?
This dude's like 12 and a half years old. How many taxes have you paid, sir? This dude right here is like 16 tops, okay? How many taxes have you paid, sir? They've taken too many taxes out of my pocket. I am in my mid-40s. I probably paid more in taxes last year than this man has paid in his entire goddamn life. Also, put your goddamn hat on right.
Is on working people, or is she trying to raise them on corporations?
Probably working people. I work a lot. I worked all summer, and I lost a lot of money due to
this dude. He said I worked all summer. Oh my God, Americans, what are we doing? This is where we're at. We have a real entitlement program or problem. We have a program too. Entitlement problem in America. I work a lot. I worked all summer. Bro, this dude entered the workforce for the first time ever and recognized what taxes were, and he's like, you know what? Actually, this shit is bullshit.
Working people. I work a lot. I worked all summer, and I lost a lot of money due to taxes. So
when you say probably, she has said that she wants to cut them for working people and raise them on corporations. Yeah, Trump has said that he wants to cut corporate taxes.
I just know that Trump will do the right thing.
So cutting corporate taxes then is the right thing?
Yeah.
Do you say Kamala or Kamala?
I say communist.
There you go. You win that argument. Do you think she's a communist, a Marxist?
Absolutely. I had to flee California after 25 years, and she was from California.
You know, people, the economy that you're talking about, people are hurting. Do you think that we might need politicians who support policies to help, you know, everyday working Americans out now? That's important?
Yeah, absolutely. And Trump was the first to say he wouldn't tax tips. And a lot of people in the service industry rely on their tips, from Uber drivers.
Dude, first of all, I know a lot of people in the service industry, and not that I would ever be okay with people not paying their taxes, ever. But a lot of them, they don't pay taxes on the tips, first of all. But this idea that Donald Trump was the first person ever to talk about not taxing tips is insane. This is why, like, I don't ever take Trump supporters seriously. Like, they say the dumbest shit ever. Like, Donald Trump was the first person to talk about not taxing tips. Like, nah, he wasn't. But you don't even need to make that argument. Like, you don't need to make that argument. This is what, like, drives me nuts about Trump supporters. You could just be like, you know, he's for not taxing tips, you know, and they go, oh, well, Kamala is too. It's like, well, that's great, but, like, they're both bad for not taxing tips, but Donald Trump's also better because of these reasons, right? Like, but they're not smart enough to do that. This lady just claims she fled California. Okay, all right, did you have to, like, were they chasing you? Was Gavin Newsom, like, following your vehicle, like, stop, give me your taxes? Like, dude, shut the up. Seriously, like, these people are just, it drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. Like, he wasn't the first person to talk about not taxing tips, and that doesn't
tax tips.
It doesn't even
and a lot of people in the service industry rely on their tips, from Uber drivers to restaurant workers. Also, I'm a senior. I'm over 55, and he also said he would not tax Social Security.
So these policies, then, if we support people who run and enact policies that help people out, you know, that maybe help people buy their first home, that maybe cut taxes, that maybe give people a leg up, whatever the policies are.
How's that? Is that
do you
better?
support that?
If they're U.S. citizens, because if you're a green card holder, you can buy a house if you have a job. So I think Americans should come first, and the...
But that's Marxism, isn't it?
No, not if they're a citizen
no
and
idea what
they
it
need
is.
like a good loan. Like I get a VA loan.
Right, but I'm saying that's the government helping.
5 minutes. 5 minutes. What up,
Even
DJ?
in a broken Washington, one person
Jesus
delivers
Christ, shut up,
results for us. Kevin Kiley.
It is a form of Marxism. Well, I wouldn't say Marxism. I would say socialism.
Donald Trump has called Kamala Harris a Marxist. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. She's never, even in...
Not a single one of these people can define what Marxism is. Not a single one of these people can define what communism is. Like, this is the problem with America in general, is like all the vagary, right? Like, I just use this word because other people use this word. No, I've never looked into it. No, I don't know what it means. And then they're like, I wonder why things are so divided. Imagine if you said to yourself, I'm not going to call somebody something unless I actually understand what it is and they fit the definition of what it is. Imagine how less divided we would be if people actually like thought about the words that they were using to define other people. Kamala is not a Marxist. Like, I listened to a person last night that was a Trotskyist. Like I said, I didn't really believe that there was a bunch of like communists out there. I think it's a Red Scare bullshit tactic. But like this person was, she liked Trotsky. And I'll be honest with you, she talked about it in detail in a way that like I had no idea. I was like, oh my God, like that's crazy. Like that this is how defined this person has their political beliefs in this area. And in some ways, I respect that she had defined it this well. And in other ways, I was like, I don't think that you're like completely thinking this all the way out. And like, you know, and you live kind of in a fantasy realm where like these like perfect things happen. And so like you can follow through and be this form of government is actually like potentially a good thing. I don't believe it is. But I was actually like impressed by how much she knew about what she believed, right? Like that's just something that is so like it doesn't exist with these people. Not a single one of these people could tell you what Marxism is. Not a single one of these people could tell you what communism is. It's insane. Some people are really into serial killers. That's true. It's true. It's true. All right. Where are we at? We got 3 minutes. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Let's go over here. We're going to hop over here because we don't want to miss the beginning of this. All right, guys? We want to hear the intro music.
Should a crisis happen, a heartbeat away from the
What up,
president?
Cool Ed?
We live in a time of assassination attempts on the Republican nominee, of political violence, and of aging politicians. So it's no question that one day one of these people could be president. We hope all people live healthy lives and serve full terms, but you never know in American history. That's what the history always tells us.
Nancy, the other big event is these incredible floods in North Carolina, which also is a platform for presidents.
Let's go!
It is, because handling of natural disasters is often a proxy for voters, of competence. They look at how you handle something
my
like
chat
that
is the
and
best
they say,
chat.
this person is capable of handling big, important
People
things.
aren't here for
And
me.
that's why
They're here for the
President
chat,
Biden
okay?
tomorrow is heading to North Carolina and South Carolina.
Here we are!
And Florida and Georgia the next.
Handshake.
And
Get him, Tim. Let's go, Tim. Let's go, Tim.
The lone man behind his lectern. Ed, give us your last
No
thoughts
couches
as we watch
allowed.
Here as J.D. Vance is off in the wings for the moment. Oh, there he is.
Oh, he's already making notes. Look at Tim Walz already writing down notes.
That seems obvious, but no faux pas. And they're looking for a viral moment. That's what they'll be looking for tonight.
No handshake.
No handshake.
There was a handshake. They missed it. They missed the handshake. Y'all talking too much. You didn't see the handshake. What's wrong with you guys?
And maybe you're shaking hands before the cameras came.
That's right. Well, we have the vice
Dude,
presidential
there's
debate
6 of
coming
you.
up in a moment.
I'm all, the one
Moderated
person
by
here. I saw it.
Maura O'Donnell and Margaret Brennan. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance and Minnesota
Let's
Governor
go!
Tim Walz take the stage. Well, they've taken the stage, so stick with us here and join us also on our streaming channel, CBS News.
Adam Mockler isn't
24/7
streaming
for
it?
exclusive content you won't
Maybe
see
he's worried about getting
anywhere
a
else.
copyright strike.
Thank you for joining.
He might be scared of getting a copyright strike. I've got room for one. The couches are definitely covered. I hope so. For their protection, Alex. For their protection.
Tonight, with just over a month
If
to go
Adam
until
couldn't
Election
stream
Day,
it,
the first and only
if other
meeting
people
between
can't
the two
stream it,
men
I just want you
who
guys to
will
know if
become
the stream
Vice
goes down,
President
that's
of
because
the
we got
United
we got
Democratic
a
Governor Tim Walz of
takedown.
Minnesota
Okay,
and
don't forget to
Republican
like the
Senator
stream
J.D.
now. I'm
Vance
doing
of
this for the people.
This is likely the final debate of this election.
time!
Is already underway in 20 states. CBS News polling shows this remains
Who's
a
in the
race
blue corner?
either presidential
Oh, Tim
candidate
Walz,
could
of course.
win. The CBS News vice presidential debate starts now.
Fight for every single vote, and we're going to take this country back.
And we are ready to continue to build the future together.
We're going to turn this
Let's
whole country
go.
around
with
Let's
President
go.
Trump's leadership.
You know what's at the end of this little journey? Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States.
This is a CBS News special, live from CBS News headquarters in New York.
How long
America
until he
decides
says something
the
crazy?
Vice presidential debate.
I'm going 5 minutes in.
Good evening, I'm Nora O'Donnell, and thank you for joining
Alan.
us for tonight's CBS News Vice Presidential Debate. We want to
hell
welcome
yeah,
our
Walz.
viewers on
Crip
CBS,
walk on him.
on other networks here in the
C-walk,
US
homie.
and around the world. We have a consequential night ahead, and our focus is the issues that matter to you, the voter. Let's introduce the candidates. Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz and Ohio's Republican Senator J.D. Vance tonight meeting for the first time.
Look at these.
I'm Margaret Brennan. In order to have a thoughtful
good moment.
and civil debate,
Oh, that was a great
these
moment.
are the rules that both campaigns have agreed to. Questions will be directed at one candidate who will have 2 minutes to respond. The other candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for rebuttal. Then each candidate will get another minute to make further points, with an additional 1 minute.
J.D. Vance is going to
at the
last
discretion
30
of the
seconds
moderator.
tops.
The
30
primary
seconds.
role of the moderators is to
I'm just saying, I
facilitate the
may have
debate
heard from a
between the
couch or
candidates,
two that
enforce
that's
the
all
rules,
he's got.
and provide
30
the candidates
seconds,
with the opportunity to
and he's got to
fact-check
pull
claims
out.
made by each other.
CBS News reserves the right to mute
Second
the
question?
candidates'
Okay.
microphones to maintain decorum. We have not shared the questions or topics with the campaigns. The stage is set. Governor, Senator,
no biting.
Thank you for joining us.
No fish
Let's
hooks.
Get started.
No eye gouges.
Tonight, our country is facing several unfolding crises. The Middle East is on the brink of war. Americans are suffering from the catastrophic impact of Hurricane Helene. And now a labor strike as 25,000 dock workers from Maine to Texas are picketing. We're going to begin tonight with the Middle East. Margaret.
Thank you, Nora. Earlier today, Iran launched its largest attack yet on Israel, but that attack failed, thanks to joint U.S. and Israeli defensive action. President Biden has deployed more than 40,000 U.S. military personnel and assets to that region over the past year to try to prevent a regional war. Iran is weakened, but the U.S. still considers it the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and it has drastically reduced the time it would take to develop a nuclear weapon. It is down now to 1 or 2 weeks' time. Ooh. Governor Walz, if you were the final voice in the Situation Room, would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
Well,
Thanks, DJ.
Thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago, a nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. But
there
it's
you
not
go.
just
Good
that.
job, buddy.
It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and his national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them, Donald Trump, said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance. What we've seen out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together. Understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the Vice President said today we will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, the same question. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel
Neither one of them
on
are going to
Iran?
answer
You
it.
have 2 minutes.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working-class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me, and she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude.
Dude, Redog, that would have been that's the move.
That made it possible
that was the
for me to
move.
live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again. Now, to answer this particular question, we have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies.
His
and
$8
God forbid,
billion,
potentially
and it was their
launching
money,
against the United
and it wasn't
States
used
as
for
well.
weapons.
Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world. Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look, it is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
He did not answer it.
Thank you, Senator.
Like 5 times.
Walz, do you care to respond to any of the allegations?
Well, look, Donald Trump was in office. We'll sometimes hear a revisionist history, but when Donald Trump was in office, it was Donald Trump who we had a coalition of nations that had boxed Iran's nuclear program in, the inability to advance it. Donald Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership. And when Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted, because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump. And when Iranian missiles did fall near U.S. troops and they received traumatic brain injuries, Donald Trump wrote it off as headaches. Look, our allies understand that Donald Trump is fickle. He will go to whoever has the most flattery or where it makes sense to him. Steady leadership like you witnessed today, like you witnessed in April. Both Iranian attacks were repelled. Our coalition is strong, and we need the steady leadership that Kamala Harris is providing.
Senator Vance, the U.S. did have a diplomatic deal with Iran to temporarily pause parts of its nuclear program, and President Trump did exit that deal. He recently said, just 5 days ago, the U.S. must now make a diplomatic deal with Iran because the consequences are impossible. Did he make a mistake? You have 1 minute.
Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump. Who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years? And the answer is your running mate, not mine. Donald Trump consistently made the world more secure. Now, we talk about the sequence of events that led us to where we are right now, and you can't ignore October the 7th, which I appreciate Governor Walz bringing up. But when did Iran and Hamas and their proxies attack Israel? It was during the administration of Kamala Harris. So Governor Walz can criticize Donald Trump's tweets, but effective, smart diplomacy and peace through strength is how you bring stability back to a very broken world.
No, Trump's policies are his tweets.
Once before. Ask yourself at home, when was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
Yeah, there's only like 6 fucking wars going on while he was in office.
Let's turn now to Hurricane Helene. The storm could become one of the deadliest on record. More than 100.
This is more of a political debate than you'll see ever involving Donald Trump.
Scientists say climate change makes these hurricanes larger.
These are actually like people being real politicians
because of the historic rainfall. Senator Vance, according to CBS News polling, 7 in 10 Americans and more than 60% of Republicans under the age of 45 favor the U.S. taking steps to try and reduce climate change. Senator, what responsibility would the Trump administration have to try and reduce the impact of climate change? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure. So first of all, let's start with the hurricane, because it's an unbelievable, unspeakable human tragedy. I just saw today, actually, a photograph of 2 grandparents on a roof with a 6-year-old child, and it was the last photograph ever taken of them because the roof collapsed and those innocent people lost their lives. And I'm sure Governor Walz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get to save as many lives as possible, and then, of course, afterwards, to help the people people in those communities rebuild. I mean, these are communities that I love.
Dude,
Some
he's
of them I know
not going to
very
answer this
personally.
question. Walz
In
better
Appalachia,
answer this
all
question. This
across
is
the
a fucking
Southeast.
softball
They need
for
their
Walz.
government to do their job, and I commit that when Donald Trump is president again, the government will put the citizens of this country first when they suffer from a disaster.
Come on,
Tim. You asked about climate change. I think this is a very important issue. Look, a lot of people are justifiably worried about all these crazy weather patterns. I think it's important for us, first of all, to say, Donald Trump and I support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But one of the things that I've noticed some of our Democratic friends talking a lot about is a concern about carbon emissions, this idea that carbon emissions drives all of the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true, just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science. Let's just say that's true.
Weird science?
Well, if you believe that, what would you want to do?
It's
The answer is that you'd
150-year-old
want to
science.
reshore as much American manufacturing as possible, and you'd want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America, because we're the cleanest economy in the entire world. What have Kamala Harris's policies actually led to? More energy production in China, more manufacturing overseas, more doing business in some of the dirtiest parts of the entire world. And when I say that, I mean
God, he's loving not
the
being
amount of
fact-checked
carbon
right
emissions
now.
they're doing per
He
unit
is
of economic
lying
output.
out of his
So
ass
if we
right
actually
now.
care about getting cleaner air and cleaner water, the best thing to do is to double down and invest in American workers and the American people. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris has done exactly the opposite.
Governor Walz, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Well, we got close to an agreement because all those things are happening. Look, first of all, it is a horrific tragedy with this hurricane, and my heart goes out to the folks that are down there in contact with the governors. I serve as co-chair of the Council of Governors as we work together on these emergency managements. Governors know no partisanship. They work together. So all of the governors and the emergency responders are on the ground. Those happen on the front end. The federal government comes in, makes sure they're there to that we recover, but we're still in that phase where we need to make sure that they're staying there, staying focused. Now, look, coming back to the climate change issue, there's no doubt this thing roared onto the scene faster and stronger than anything we've seen. Senator Vance has said that there's a climate problem in the past. Donald Trump called it a hoax and then joked that these things would make more beachfront property to be able to invest in. What we've seen out of the Harris administration now, the Biden-Harris administration, is we've seen this investment. We've seen massive investments, the biggest
Inflation Reduction Act,
global history that we've seen in the Inflation Reduction Act has created jobs all across the country. 2,000 in Jeffersonville, Ohio, taking the EV technology that we invented and making it here. 200,000 jobs across the country. The largest solar manufacturing plant in North America sits in Minnesota. But my farmers know climate change is real. They've seen 500-year droughts, 500-year floods back to back. But what they're doing is adapting, and this has allowed them to tell me, look, I harvest corn, I harvest soybean, and I harvest wind. We are producing more natural gas and more oil at any time than we ever have. We're also producing more clean energy. So the solution for us is to continue to move forward, that climate change is real. Reducing our impact is absolutely critical, but this is not a false choice. You can do that at the same time you're creating the jobs that we're seeing all across the country. That's exactly what this administration has done. We are seeing us becoming an energy superpower for the future, not just the current.
Right.
And that's what absolutely makes sense. And then we start thinking about how do we mitigate these disasters.
Thank you.
That was a
Senator,
good answer.
I want to give you an
First
opportunity
answer was
to
meh.
respond
That
there.
answer
the
was
governor
good.
mentioned that President Trump has called climate change a hoax. Do you agree?
Well, look, what the president has said is that if the Democrats, in particular Kamala Harris and her leadership, if they really believe that climate change is serious, what they would be doing is more manufacturing and more energy production in the United States of America, and that's not what they're doing. So clearly, Kamala Harris herself doesn't believe her own rhetoric on this. If she did, she would actually agree with Donald Trump's energy policies. Now, something Governor Walz said I think is important to touch upon, because
that's not true.
When we talk about clean energy,
he's loving this not getting fact-checked.
Often the Democrats will use here. And I'm talking, of course, about the Democratic leadership. And the real issue is that if you're spending hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars of American taxpayer money on solar panels that are made in China, number one, you're going to make the economy dirtier. We should be making more of those solar panels here in the United States of America. Some of them are, Tim, but a lot of them are being made overseas in China, especially the components that go into those solar panels. So if you really want to make the environment cleaner, you've got to invest in more energy production.
Trump doesn't want to invest in green energy, period.
In the past 40 years. Natural gas, we got to invest more in it. Kamala Harris has done the opposite. That's raised energy prices and also meant that we're doing worse by the climate.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, would you like to respond?
Well, look, we're producing more natural gas than we ever have. There's no moratorium on that. We're producing more oil. But the folks know, and like I said again, these are not liberal folks. These are not folks that are Green New Deal folks. These are farmers that have been drought one year, massive flooding the next year. They understand that it makes sense. Look, our #1 export cannot be topsoil from erosion from these massive storms. We saw it in Minnesota this summer. And thinking about how do we respond to that, we're thinking ahead on this. And what Kamala Harris has been able to do in Minnesota, we're starting to weatherproof some of these things. The infrastructure law that was passed allows us to think about mitigation in the future. How do we make sure that we're protecting by burying our power lines? How do we make sure that we're protecting lakefronts and things that we're seeing more and more of? But to call it a hoax and to take the oil company executives to Mar-a-Lago, say, give me money for my campaign, and I'll let you do whatever you want. We can be smarter about that, and an all-above energy policy is exactly what she's doing, creating those jobs right here.
Governor, your time is up. The overwhelming consensus among scientists is that the Earth's climate
Walz
is
did a
warming
good
at
job
an
there.
unprecedented rate. Margaret?
Thank you.
Oh, there's a little fact
We're
check.
going to turn now to
There's a little fact check there.
The crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border consistently ranks as one of the top issues for American voters. Senator Vance, your campaign
This is a
pledging to
softball
carry
for
out
him.
the largest mass deportation plan in American history and to use the U.S. military to do so. Could you be more
not a
specific
softball
about
anymore.
exactly how this will work? For example, would you deport parents who have entered the U.S. illegally and separate them from any of their children who were born on U.S. soil? You have 2 minutes.
So first of all, Margaret, before we talk about deportations, we have to stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies. 94 executive orders suspending deportations, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system. That has opened the floodgates. And what it's meant is that a lot of fentanyl is coming into our country. I had a mother who struggled with opioid addiction and
It's
has
not
gotten
coming across
clean.
the border.
I don't want people who are struggling with addiction to be deprived of their second chance because Kamala Harris let in fentanyl into our communities at record levels. So you've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations, and that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually do? So we've got 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is we start with the criminal migrants. About 1 million of those people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border illegally. I think you start with deportations on those folks. And then I think you make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers. A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own country. And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work. And the final point, Margaret, is you ask about family separation. Right now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000 children that the Department of Homeland Security has effectively lost. Some of them have been sex trafficked. Some of them hopefully are at homes with their families. Some of them have been used as drug trafficking mules. The real family separation policy in this country is unfortunately Kamala Harris's wide open southern border. And I'd ask my fellow Americans to remember when she came into office,
literally
she
said they
she
might
was
be with
going
their
to do this.
families.
Real leadership would be saying, you know what, I screwed up. We're going to go back to Donald Trump's border policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for
They
all
literally tried to pass the border bill.
Governor,
literally.
Do you care to respond to any of those specific allegations?
Bring up the border bill.
Including that the vice president is, quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other things regarding children?
The drug mule is not true, but I will say about this, about the fentanyl, because this is a crisis of this, the opioid crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history. 30% decrease in Ohio, but there's still more work to do. But let's go back to this on immigration. Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of the largest state and a border state in California. She's the only person in this race who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking and drug interventions. But look, we all want to solve this. Most of us want to solve this, and that is the United States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration
Bring it up.
this nation's seen. It was crafted by a conservative senator from
Senator
Oklahoma,
James Langford.
I know
Thank
him.
you.
He's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans worked on this piece of legislation.
Good job.
The Border Patrol said, this is what we need in here. These are the experts. And the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get there. 1,500 new border agents, detection for drugs, DOJ money to speed up these the adjudications on this, just what America wants. But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. It gives him to, what would Donald Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things? And they need to be done by the legislature. You can't just do this through the executive branch. So look, we have the options to do this. Donald Trump had 4 years. He had 4 years to do this. And he promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall, and Mexico will pay for it. Less than 2% of that wall got built, and Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are again, 9 years after he came down that escalator, dehumanizing people and telling them what he was going to do. As far as the deportation plan,
talk about the eating of dogs.
Senator Vance said it was so unworkable to be laughable. So that's where we're at. Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, the
Good job.
question was, will you separate parents from their children, even if their kids are U.S. citizens? You have 1 minute.
Margaret, my point
Vance
is that we
talks
already
about
have
problems
massive child
and Walz
separations
is talking
thanks to
about
Kamala
solutions.
Harris's open border. And I didn't accuse Kamala Harris of inviting drug mules. I said that she enabled the Mexican drug cartels to operate freely in this country. And we know that they use children as drug mules. And it is a disgrace, and it has to stop. Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94
she didn't
Trump
undo any of that.
actions that
Vice president doesn't have the power to do that.
This problem is
God
leading
damn
to
it.
massive
Fact
problems
check him.
in the United States of America. Parents who
Literally,
can't
a vice
afford
president can't
healthcare,
do that.
Schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president again.
Senator, your time is up.
He don't want to answer the question.
What about
Or his wife?
our CBS News polling, which does show that a majority of Americans, more than 50%, support mass deportations?
Look, we fix this issue with a bill that is necessary, but the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw this, and Senator Vance, and it surprises me on this, talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this. That vilified a large number of people.
There
who were
we
here
go.
legally in the community of Springfield.
Talk about it.
The Republican governor said, it's not true, don't do it. There's consequences for this. There's consequences. We could come together. Senator Langford did it. We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue. And the consequences in Springfield were the governor had to send state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize
He
and
started
villainize
slow.
other
He's
human
doing good
beings.
now.
Tim,
Governor, your time is up. Senator, I'll give you 1 minute, but let me just ask you the question first. The governor has made the point, and I think as a sitting lawmaker, you know that Congress controls the purse strings and any funding. So you have said repeatedly that Donald Trump would, through executive action, solve this. Do you disagree that Congress controls the purse strings and would need to support many of the changes that you would actually want to implement? You have 1 minute.
Look, Margaret, first of all, the gross majority of what we need to do at the southern border is just empowering law enforcement to do their job. I've been to the southern
like
border
the
more than our
Senator
borders
Langford
are.
bill.
Kamala Harris has been, and it's actually heartbreaking because the Border Patrol agents, they just want to be empowered to do their job. Of course, additional resources
They would have been
help,
funded.
But most of this is about the president and the vice president empowering our law enforcement to say, if you try to come across the border illegally, you've got to stay in Mexico, you've got to go back through proper proper channels. Now, Governor Walz brought up the community of Springfield, and he's very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, in Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed. You've got hospitals that are overwhelmed. You have got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim. And I actually think, I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
Senator, your time is up.
Yeah, he stole his attack there.
It is law enforcement that asked for the bill. They helped craft it. They're the ones that supported it. That's because they know we need to do this. Look, this issue of continuing to bring this up, of not dealing with it, of blaming migrants for everything. On housing, we could talk a little bit about Wall Street speculators buying up housing and making them less affordable. But it becomes a blame. Look, this bill also gives the money necessary to adjudicate. I agree. It should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done. This bill gets it done in 90 days. Then you start to make a difference in this, and you start to adhere to what we know, American principles. I don't talk about my faith a lot, but Matthew 25:40 talks about, to the least amongst us you do unto me. I think that's true of most Americans. They simply want order to it. This bill does it. It's funded. It's supported by the people who do it. And it lets us keep our dignity about how we treat other people.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
nice fact check. Nice fact check. Damn!
We're going to turn now to the
shit!
The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check.
Oh, he said you weren't going to fact check me.
To say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leadership.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
He's not describing it in a way that actually describes the app.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The CBP One app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris...
They muted him.
The audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process. Laura.
Thank you, Margaret. The economy is a top concern for voters. Each of your campaigns has released an economic plan. So let's talk about the specifics. Governor Walz, Vice President Harris unveiled a plan that includes billions in tax credits.
You almost feel bad for fucking Vance, dude. I told you he's got to defend all that dumb shit Trump says.
Increase the nation's deficit by $1.2 trillion. How would you pay for that without ballooning the deficit? Governor, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you.
Good question.
Kamala Harris and I do believe in the middle class because that's where we come from. We both grew up in that. We understand. So those of you out there listening tonight, you're hearing a lot of stuff back and forth, and it's good. It's healthy. That's what this is supposed to happen. You should be listening. How's this going to impact me? The bold forward plan that Kamala Harris put out there is talking about this housing issue. The one thing is there's 3 million new houses proposed under this plan with down payment assistance on the front end to get you in a house. A house is much more than just an asset to be traded somewhere. It's foundational to where you're at. And then making sure that the things you buy every day, whether they be prescription drugs or other things, that there's fairness in that. Look, the $35 insulin is a good thing, but it costs $5 to make insulin. They were charging $800 before this law went into effect. As far as the housing goes, I've seen it in Minnesota. 12% more houses in Minneapolis, prices went down on rent 4%. It's working. And then making sure tax cuts go to the middle class. $6,000 child tax credit, we have one in Minnesota, reduces childhood poverty by 1/3. We save money in the long run, and we do the right thing for families. And then getting businesses off the ground. The law as it stands right now is $5,000 tax credit for small business, increasing that to $50,000. Now, this is a philosophical difference between us. Donald Trump made a promise, and I'll give you this. He kept it. He took folks to Mar-a-Lago, he said, you're rich as hell, I'm going to give you a tax cut. He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to the top class. What happened there was an $8 trillion increase in the national debt, the largest ever. Now he's proposing a 20% consumption or sales tax on everything we bring in. Everyone agrees, including businesses, it would be destabilizing it.
Yep.
It would increase inflation and
National
potentially
sales
lead
tax ain't
to
gonna
a
work like
recession.
that.
Look, this is simple for you. Where are we going? Kamala Harris has said to do the things she wants to do. We'll just ask the wealthiest to pay their fair share. When
He
you
answered
do
the
that,
question.
our
There you
system
go.
works best. More people are participating in it, and folks have the things that they need.
Dude, I did get down
Senator, I want to
payment
give you a moment to
assistance.
respond on
Redonk,
that.
are you
But similarly,
fucking
the Wharton
retarded?
School has done an analysis
I got
of the
down
Trump
payment
plan
assistance.
and says it would increase the nation's
Jesus
deficit
Christ.
by $5.8 trillion.
Sometimes I
My
can't with
question
you.
is the same for you. How do you pay for all that without ballooning the deficit? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, you're going to hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer, a lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do. And some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear, is that Kamala Harris has already done it. Because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years.
Doesn't
she
have
had
the authority to do
opportunity
so.
to enact all of these great policies. And what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%. Open the American
None of
southern
this had
border
anything
and
to do with
make
pandemic.
middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If Kamala Harris has such great plans for how to address middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now. Not when asking
Can't
for
do that.
promotion, but in the job the
She's the
American
vice
people
president.
gave her 3.5 years
And they have
ago.
done a good job,
and
by the
fact
way.
that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans. Now, Donald Trump's economic plan is not just a plan, but it's also a record. A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plans, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense, and they don't have wisdom.
Okay.
Because Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country.
Donald Trump's smarter than
1.5%
economists.
inflation, and to boot,
Guys.
peace and security all over the world. So when people say that Donald Trump's
He's gotta
economic
just
plan
trust
doesn't
me,
make
bro.
sense, I say look at the
He said,
record. He
"Just trust
delivered
me, bro."
rising take-home pay for American workers. Now, Tim admirably admits that they want to undo the Trump tax cuts. But if you look at what was so different about Donald Trump's tax cuts, even from previous Republican tax cut plans, is that a lot of those resources went to giving more take-home pay to middle-class and working-class
No,
Americans.
$5 trillion in
2017,
debt from those
and you
tax
saw an
cuts.
American economic boom unlike we've seen in a generation in this
Not
country.
true.
That is a record
Like,
that
none
I'm
of
proud
this
to
is
run
true.
on, and we're going to get back to that common sense wisdom.
It
so
must
that
suck
you
to
can
have to
afford
fucking
live
defend Donald
the
Trump.
American dream again. I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about paying the bills.
Here
It's
comes
going
the
to
fear.
stop when Donald Trump
Here comes the fear.
brings back common sense to this country.
Governor, do you want to respond to that? What has Kamala Harris done for the middle
Yeah,
class?
well, Kamala Harris's day one was Donald Trump's failure on COVID that led to the collapse of our economy.
Thank
We
you.
were already
There we
before
go.
COVID in a manufacturing recession, but 10 million people out of work, largest percentage since the Great Depression. 9 million jobs closed on that. That was day one. Whether it was the Infrastructure Act or other things we moved. Now, you made a question about experts. Said this. I've made a note of this. Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted.
Who can be trusted?
Look, if you're going to be president,
just Trump.
You don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does. My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not Donald Trump. And the same
Yes.
thing goes with this.
Thank
and
you.
I ask you out there,
Thank you.
teachers, nurses, truck drivers, whatever, how is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years, in the last year as president? That's what's wrong with the system. There's a way around it, and he's bragged about that.
He's
We're just
bragged about
asking for
it.
fairness in it, and that's all you want.
You have a minute.
Governor, you say trust the experts. But those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial
We did get
base
cheaper
off to other countries,
goods.
to
That's why
Mexico and
people look.
elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off, and they were wrong about it. And for the first time in a generation, Donald Trump
our
had the
economy has
wisdom
been
and the
amazing.
courage to say to that
Forever.
bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're unleashing American energy. We're going to make more of our own stuff. And this isn't just an economic issue.
It's about
And I've got
change.
3 beautiful little kids at home, 7, 4, and 2, and I love them very much, and I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the
that was a good
pharmaceuticals
try
that we
there.
put in the bodies of our
That was a good
children
try.
are manufactured by nations that hate us. This has to stop. And we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on.
Senator, your time is up. Governor Walz,
we're not going to listen to experts.
Donald Trump on the economy.
Oh, that's a good quote.
If you're listening tonight and you want billionaires to get tax cuts, you heard what the numbers were. Look, I'm a union guy on this. I'm not a guy who wanted to ship things overseas, but I understand that, look, we produce soybeans and corn. We need to have fair trading partners. That's something that we believe in. I think the thing that most concerns me on
it's
this
about
is
change.
Donald Trump was the guy who created the largest trade
what
deficit
worked
in
20
American
years
history
ago
with
don't
China.
work now.
So the rhetoric
it's
is
about
good.
change.
Much of what the senator
not going
said right
back.
there, I'm in agreement with him on this. I watched it happen too. I watched it to my communities,
yes.
and we talked about that. But we had people undercutting the right to collectively bargain. We had right to work states made it more difficult. We had companies that were willing to ship it over, and we
Good
saw
job,
people
Tim.
profit. Folks that are venture capital in some cases, putting money into companies that were overseas. We're in agreement that we bring those home. The issue is Donald Trump is talking about it. Kamala Harris has a record, 250,000 more manufacturing jobs just out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So appreciate that. So if you notice, what Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics
that's a
show
gross generalization.
that he did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver
Bring up Obama's
lower
economy.
inflation,
Bring
which
up
of course
Obama's
he did.
economy.
And then you've simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman
it's
who
a
would
global
sometimes
pandemic,
go into
dog.
medical debt
Oh
so that she
my
could
God.
put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America
He's just
that's
got, like,
affordable
basic
again.
bitch answers.
We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
I hope we have a conversation on health care then.
Senator, Governor,
please.
Thank you, Margaret.
We have a lot to get to ahead, gentlemen, on many topics. But right now, I want to talk about personal qualifications. The vice president is often the last voice the president hears before making consequential decisions. We want to ask you about your
It always
leadership
gets cheaper
qualities.
after the summer readout.
Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, many times I will talk a lot, I will get caught up in the rhetoric, but being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID, and I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community, and then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
He admitted to over-exaggerating.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question
that's
was,
a good
can
thing.
you explain
should.
the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Yeah, he over-exaggerated.
Thank you, Governor. Senator Vance, in 2016, you called your running mate Donald Trump unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. I know you've been asked many times, and you've said you regret those
they
comments.
Went back to back on these guys.
You then voted
this
for
is
Donald
good.
Trump in 2020. But the Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while he was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, Trump thoroughly failed
they're going back to back on this one, Redonk.
You're now his running mate, and you've shifted many of your policy stances to align with his. If you become vice president,
I like seeing people
why
admit
should
that they're
Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear and not just the advice he wants to hear? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people.
Oh, so you're gullible.
Wages, rising take-home pay, an economy
Good to
that
know.
worked for normal Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think he'd be able to deliver on. And yeah, when you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it. It's one of the reasons, Margaret, why I've done so many interviews is because I think it's important to actually explain to the American people where I come down on the issues and what changed. Now, you pointed out the messages from 2020.
He's blaming
Margaret,
other people for this.
That I think there were a lot of things that we could have done better in the Trump administration the first round if Congress was doing its job. I strongly believe, and I've been a United States Senator, that Congress is not just a high-class debating society.
And you
it's not just a
disagreed with
forum
it.
for senators and congressmen to whine about problems. It's a forum to govern. So there were a lot of things on the border, on tariffs, for example, where I think that we could have done so much more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit better about how they govern the country. They were so obsessed with impeaching Donald Trump, they couldn't actually govern. And I want to talk about this tariff issue in particular, Margaret, because Tim just accused this of being a national sales tax. Look, the one thing, and you're probably surprised to hear me praising Joe Biden.
Why are we talking about the tariff now?
One thing that Joe Biden did is he continued some of the Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing jobs.
He actually expanded on them.
And it's the one issue, the most pro-worker part of the Biden administration. It's the one issue where Kamala Harris has run away from Joe Biden's record. Think about this. If you're trying to employ slave laborers in China at $3 a day, you're going to do that and undercut the wages of American workers unless our country stands up for itself and says you're not accessing our markets unless you're paying middle-class Americans a fair wage.
Senator, your time is up.
Hold on.
Now to the issue
Wasn't
of
the question
reproductive
with
rights.
what he didn't?
Governor Walz, after Roe versus Wade was overturned, you signed a bill
We got
into
more
law
questions.
that made Minnesota one of the least restrictive states in the nation when it comes to abortion. Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in the 9th month is absolutely fine. Yes or no? Is that what you
Answer
support?
this
I'll
right.
give you 2
Please
minutes.
That's not
answer
what the
this
bill
right.
says, but look, this issue is what's on everyone's mind. Donald Trump put this all in.
They're not
motion.
elective.
He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade. 52 years of personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh, we send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing. Amanda Zaworski would disagree with you on it's a beautiful thing. A young bride in Texas waiting for their child at 18 weeks. She has a complication, a tear in the membrane. She needs to go in. The medical care at that point needs to be decided by the doctor. And that would have been an abortion. But in Texas, that would have put them in legal jeopardy.
Yep.
She went home, got sepsis, nearly dies, and now she may have difficulty having children. Or in Kentucky, Hadley Duvall, a 12-year-old child raped and impregnated by her stepfather. Those are horrific. Now, when God asked about that, Senator Vance said 2 wrongs don't make a right. There is no right in this. So in Minnesota, what we did was restore Roe versus Wade. We made sure that we put women in charge of their health care. But look, This is not what, if you don't know Amanda or a Hadley, you soon will. Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies. It's going to make it more difficult, if not impossible.
Dude, point out
to
that he
get
wrote the
contraception
forward. Please
and
point that
limit
out.
access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments. For so many of you out there listening, me included, infertility treatments are why I have a child. That's nobody else's business, but those things are being proposed. And the catch-all on this is, well, the states will decide what's right for Texas might not be right for Washington. That's not how this works. This is basic human right. We have seen maternal mortality skyrocket in Texas, outpacing many other countries in the world. This is about health care. In Minnesota, we are ranked first in health care for a reason. We trust women. We trust doctors.
Senator, do you want to respond?
I wish
to
he would have just said
Will you
it.
create
Yes,
a
in the
federal
9th month,
pregnancy
yes.
monitoring agency?
No, Nora, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care
It's
about
all
it.
about
I know
the
a lot
life of the
Americans
mother.
don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And, you know, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood
Later,
where I knew
Levon.
a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options. And, you know, one of them is actually very dear to me. And I know she's watching tonight, and I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago that she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do. I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make
How
it
about
easier
protecting
for
the
young
life of the
families
mother in
to
the 8th or
afford a
9th
home
month?
so
How
they
about
can
that?
afford a place to raise that family. And I think there's so much that we can do on the public policy front just to give women more options. Now, of course, Donald Trump has been very clear that on the abortion policy specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia. Georgia has a different viewpoint from Arizona. And the proper way
There's
to
only
handle
one
this,
viewpoint.
as messy as democracy sometimes is to let voters make these decisions, let the individual
No,
states
let women
make their
make
abortion
these
policy.
decisions.
And I think that's what makes the most sense in a very big, a very diverse, and let's be honest, sometimes a very, very messy and divided
Fuck
country.
you, guy.
Governor,
You
would
don't
like to
get to
respond and also
choose what
answer the
women
question
do
about
with their
restrictions?
bodies, dog.
Well, the
Fuck
question got asked, and
that.
Donald Trump made the accusation that wasn't true about Minnesota. Well, let me tell you about this idea that there's diverse states. There's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restrictive state. Because of that, she had to travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber Thurman died in that journey back and forth. The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography? There's a
That's
very
crazy.
real chance, had Amber Thurman lived in Minnesota, she would be alive today. That's why the restoration of Roe versus Wade. When you listen to Vice President Harris talk about this subject and you hear me talk about it, you hear us talking exactly the same. Donald Trump is trying to figure out how to get the political right of this. I agree with a lot of what Senator Vance said about what's happening. His running mate, though, does not, and that's the problem.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, let me ask you about that. He mentioned, it was, I think, referring to a national ban. In the
That's
past,
crazy.
you have supported a federal ban on abortion after
If you don't like
15
abortions,
weeks.
don't get
In
one.
fact, you said if someone can't support legislation like that, quote, you are making the United States the most barbaric pro-abortion regime anywhere in the entire
Thanks,
world.
Jay. Appreciate
My question
you.
is, why have you changed your position?
Well, Nora, first of all, I never supported a national ban. I did when I was running for Senate in 2022 talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion
That is a
ban
national
in
ban.
place in this country at the
A
federal
minimum
level. I don't
national
think anybody's
standard
trying to
is
get rid
a
of that, or at
abortion
least I hope
ban.
not, though I know that Democrats have taken a very radical pro-abortion
God.
stance. But Nora, you know, one of the things that changed is in the state of Ohio, we had a referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio voted overwhelmingly, by the way, against my position. And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust back. And that's why Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making child care more accessible, making fertility treatments more accessible, because we've got to do a better job at that. And that's what real leadership is.
When did they say that?
On the pro-abortion piece of that. No, we're not. We're pro-women. We're pro-freedom to make your own choice. We know what the implications are to not be that. Women having miscarriages, women not getting the care, physicians feeling like they may be prosecuted for providing that care.
Pro-choice
And
doesn't
as
mean
far
you
as
get an
making
abortion.
sure that we're educating our children and giving them options, Minnesota's a state with one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates. We understand
Education.
that too. We know that the options need to be available, and we make that true. We also make it, we're a top 3 state for the best place to raise children. But these two things to try and say that we're pro-children, but we don't like this, or you guys are pro-abortion, that's not the case at all. We are
being pro-choice
is
is not being pro-abortion.
And we're going, and Kamala Harris is making the case to make options for children
pro-choice.
A $6,000 child tax credit, but we're not going to base that on the backs of making someone like Amber Thurman drive 600 miles to try and get health care.
Thank
Senator.
you.
May I
Thank
respond
you.
to that? First of all, Governor, I agree with you. Amber Thurman should still be alive, and there are a lot of people who should still be alive, and I certainly wish that she was. And maybe you're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me, but as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think, whether you're pro-choice or pro-abortion, that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen. Do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience.
I would say, I do.
A big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience.
Fuck you, you're a hospital.
More pro-baby and pro-family, but please.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe,
women weren't dying.
That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals. They get early childhood education. They get health care.
Walz is speaking truth, man.
Hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget. Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact-checked it with President Trump.
Gentlemen, there's a lot to discuss. We have to move on. We're going to be right back with much more of the CBS News vice presidential debate in just a moment.
The one thing I really wish that they would say about the abortion issue on the left, and I get it, like they don't want to lose votes, but I think it's ridiculous. Just like, stand on policy. And that is when a guy says something along the lines of, do you or do you not support an abortion that happens in the 7th, 8th, or 9th month of pregnancy? The fact is that less than 1% of all abortions happen after like the 24th week. This idea that this is some kind of like crazy thing that like women are just going out there and they're just getting abortions in their 7th and 8th and 9th month. Why? Because, hey, they thought about it and they decided they didn't want to have a kid. That's not happening. The reason that abortions happen that late in pregnancies is because of life-threatening things. When he talks about the baby, when Donald Trump continues to talk about the senator that said that when a baby is born, that, oh, we'll set him to the side and, you know, we kind of just like let things happen, like whatever, we let it go its course. What he's talking about is comfort care. And that is not, they don't like pull a healthy child out, set it aside and go, well, let's just wait for it to die now. No. These are babies that are born that have, you know, defects that aren't going to allow them to survive outside of the womb. This isn't like doctors are just evil people and women are just evil people and they just want to let this baby die. No, they want the baby to survive, but it has life-threatening issues for either the mother or it's going to be born with something that does not allow it to live. Do you think that, like, any woman, like, you got to be pretty messed up in the head to believe that any woman will be okay with sitting there and just watching their child pass away? That's insane. What's my opinion on the Port of Union? As far as Trinidad's asking, what's your opinion on the port union strikes? I'm pro-union, so I'm pro them striking. I wish they would have waited a month, but I'm pro-union. So, you know, as far as, like, whether or not they have a right to do what they're doing right now, that is their right. You know, like, there's a part of me, this is what, like, irritated me earlier with my good friend and brother, Redonk said, doesn't it make you mad that you didn't get a hand up from the government to buy a house? I did get a hand up from the government to buy a house. I literally benefited from Obama tax breaks and Obama housing, so I did. But even if I didn't, I wouldn't be mad at people for getting something that I didn't get. That's such a bullshit, cowardly, fucked up way to think of things. Like, oh, I'm mad because other people get shit that I didn't. Like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. I've never, ever expected anybody to have to grow up the way that I did, experience the things that I did to get anything in life. The same thing goes for them union workers, man. At the end of the day, dog, like, those union workers, I don't, like, if they strike and that causes my groceries to be more expensive, then that's just the way it is, dog. I got to do me. I got to take care of me. I'll figure it out. Those people deserve to be paid. Those people do deserve to be paid. Do I wish they would have waited 35 days? Yeah. About automation? Well, then, yeah. If they're protecting their job, they're protecting their job. You know, like, I'm about that, too. Let them protect their job, too. Like, if they're doing something that's trying to, like, protect them and their ability to like, feed their family, if they're doing something that they believe is in the right to, like, you know, create a better outcome for them and theirs, then I'm okay with that. Like, even if that costs me a little money, I'm okay with that. You know, like, that's all right. You're not mad it's only going to make houses worth more? That's not actually true. The more houses there are, the less they're going to be worth. Like, this is the dipshit way of thinking that people have, that a $25,000 credit, which the seller doesn't even know about. The seller has no idea whether or not you're going to get a $25,000 credit. Zero idea, first of all. Second, that's not how housing works. Housing is by demand. If you increase the number of houses in America, demand goes down. Like, Jesus Christ, why do I have to explain this? God damn it. All right, anyways, back to this.
Vice presidential debate. We want to turn now to America's gun violence epidemic. The leading cause of death for children and teens in America
Redonk is a lot like
by
me.
Firearms.
We just disagree
Senator
on
Vance,
certain things.
You oppose most gun legislation that Democrats claim would curb gun violence. You oppose red flag gun laws and legislation to ban certain semi-automatic rifles, including AR-15s. So let me ask you, earlier this year, for the first time, the parents of a school shooter were convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Do you think holding parents responsible could curb mass shootings? I'll give you 2 minutes.
You shouldn't leave your guns not locked up.
I don't know the full details, but I certainly trust local law enforcement and local authorities to make those decisions. I think in some cases the answer is going to be yes, and in some cases the answer is going to be no. And the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that the kid is potentially dangerous. But look, I want to just sort of speak as a father of 3 beautiful little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade. And like a lot of parents, we send our kids to school with such hope and such joy and such pride at their little faces on the first day of school. And we know, unfortunately, that a lot of kids are going to experience this terrible epidemic of gun violence. And of course, our hearts go out to the families that are affected by this terrible stuff. And we do have to do better. And I think that Governor Walz and I actually probably agree that we need to do better on this. The question is just, how do we actually do it? Now, here's something that really bothers me and worries me about this epidemic of violence. The gross majority, close to 90% in some of the statistics I've seen, of the gun violence in this country is committed with illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that topic, we know that thanks to Kamala Harris's open border,
fact check on that.
We've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartels. So that number, the amount of illegal guns in our country is higher today than it was 3.5 years ago. But what do we do about the schools? What do we do
every
to
mass
protect our
shooting
kids?
in
And I
school
think the
is
answer
literally
is,
by
and
a
I say
legal
this
gun.
Not loving the answer, because I don't want my kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers, because the idea that we can magically wave a wand and take guns out of the hands of bad guys, it just doesn't fit with recent experience. So we've got to make our schools safer. And I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan solutions for how to do that.
Governor, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I think all the parents watching tonight, this is your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a
you can't lock up the
17-year-old,
kids,
and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress, I sat in my office surrounded by dozens of the Sandy Hook parents, and they were looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead, and they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. The vice president is. We understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out.
100%.
In Minnesota, we've
100%.
enacted enhanced red flag laws, enhanced background checks, and we can start to get data. But here's the problem. If we really want to solve this, we've got folks that won't allow research to be even done on gun violence. And this idea
because the NRA,
that we should just
because
live
of the
with it,
NRA.
and I here's what I do think, that this is a good start to the conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough when we know there are things that worked. I've spent time in Finland and seen some Finnish schools. They don't have this happen, even though they have a high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference.
Exactly.
It's not infringing on your Second Amendment. And the idea to have some of these weapons out there, it just doesn't make any sense. Kamala Harris, as an attorney general, worked on this issue.
Yes,
she knows
did.
that it's there. No one's trying to scaremonger and say we're taking your guns, but I ask all of you out there, do you want your schools hardened to look like a fort? Is that what we have to go? When we know there's countries around the world that their children aren't practicing these types of drills. They're being kids. We owe it to them to get a fix. These are things that shouldn't be that difficult. You can still keep your firearms, and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Yeah.
Senator.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. And I'm sorry about that, and I hope that he's doing okay. Christ have mercy. It is awful. And I appreciate what Tim said, actually, about Finland, because I do think it illustrates some of the frankly, weird differences between our own country's gun violence problem and Finland. Is, okay, first of all, we have way higher rates of mental health abuse, or mental health substance abuse. We have way higher rates of depression, way higher rates of anxiety. We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need to get to the root causes of, because I don't think it's the whole reason why we have such a bad gun violence problem, but I do think it's a big piece of it. Another driver of the gun violence epidemic, especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but is the terrible gun violence problem in a lot of our big cities. And this is why we have to empower law enforcement to arrest the bad guys, put them away, and take gun offenders off the streets. I think there's a whole host of things that we can do here, but I do think at our schools we've got to talk about more security.
Gun violence.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it's only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where My shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice. That's not where we live today. And several things I want to mention on this is talking about cities and where it's at. The number one where the most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. And we have an epidemic of children getting guns and shooting themselves. And so
it's the number one killer of children.
And we should look at all of the issues. Making sure folks have health care and all that, but I want to be very careful. This idea of stigmatizing mental health, just because you have a mental health issue doesn't mean you're violent. And I think what we end up doing is we start looking for a scapegoat. Sometimes it just is the guns. It's just the guns, and there are things that you can do about it. But I do think that this is one, and I think this is a healthy conversation. I think there's a capacity to find solutions on this that work, protect Second Amendment, protect our children. That's our priority.
Gentlemen, thank you, Margaret.
100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora.
Good job, Tim
Let's turn now to the top contributor to inflation.
That wasn't a bad conversation,
the
to be
high
honest.
cost of housing and rent. There's a shortage of more than 4 million homes in the United States.
People should take note of this. The person that's missing right now and why this is a better conversation is because Trump isn't here. That's why it's better.
Payment assistance for first-time home buyers and a $10,000 tax credit. They also promise to build 3 million new homes. Where are you building these homes, and won't handing out that kind of money just drive up prices higher?
No, it's not handing out. First, let me say this issue of housing, and I think those of you listening on this, the problem we've had is that we've got a lot of folks that see housing as another commodity. It can be bought up, it can be shifted, it can be moved around.
It's a right.
Those are not folks living in those houses. Those of you listening tonight, that house is a big deal. I bought and owned one house in my life. My mom still lives in the house where I was. And when I think of a house, I'm thinking of Christmas services after midnight mass where you go with your family. We need to make it more affordable. And one of the things, as I said, this program that the Vice President is pushing forward and bringing a new way of approaching this is something we're doing in Minnesota from that lead. We in the state invested in making sure our housing was the biggest investment that we'd ever made in housing.
Buy houses and turn them into Airbnbs.
We cut some of the red tape. Local folks, look, we can't do it at the federal level, but local folks make it easier to build those homes. And then that down payment assistance. I can tell all of you out there, certainly for me, using the GI Bill was one thing, but a veteran's home loan, the big thing about a veteran's home loan is you don't have to pay the down payment. Those are things that make it there. Now, look, you're going to pay it back, and you're going to pay your mortgage. Those are things that we know in the long run, the appreciated value, the generational wealth that's created from it. And I will give Minneapolis an example.
1000%.
Minneapolis is the one city where we've seen the lowest inflation rates. We've seen a 12% increase in stock because we've put some of these things in, and we're implementing a state program to make sure we give some of that down payment assistance. We get it back from people because here's what we know. People with stable housing end up with stable jobs. People with stable housing have their kids able to get to school. All of those things in the long run end up saving our money. And that's the thing that I think we should be able to find some common ground in, but we can't blame immigrants for the only reason. That's not the case that's happening in many cities. The fact of the matter is that we don't have enough naturally affordable housing, but we can make sure that the government's there to help kickstart it, create that base.
Yeah,
Governor,
Obama did it.
Obama
did it in 2009. 2012 and 2016.
To seize federal lands to build homes, remove regulation, provide
tax
breaks,
what he brought
and
up.
cut back on immigration.
He did bring up
which
BlackRock, but he didn't say
prices.
BlackRock's name.
Where are you going to build
earlier
all the
at the
new
beginning
homes
of this
you're
debate? He
promising,
brought
and what
up
part of any of this
the
plan
people
will
buying
provide
up the houses,
immediate
corporations
relief?
buying up
You
houses.
have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. We don't want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but we do want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this country, which does drive up costs, Tim. 25 million illegal aliens competing with Americans for scarce homes is one of the most significant drivers of home prices in the country. It's why we have
what immigrants are buying houses?
Home prices that have happened right alongside
what immigrants are buying houses?
Alien populations under
he
Kamala
said
Harris's
illegal
leadership.
alien.
Now, Tim just mentioned a bunch of ideas. Now, some of those ideas I actually think are halfway decent, and some of them I disagree with. But the most important thing here is Kamala Harris is not running as a newcomer to politics. She is the sitting vice president. If she wants to enact all of these policies
the power to do that,
to make housing more affordable, I invite her to use the office that the American people already gave her.
She literally can't
not
do
sit
that,
around
and they've already done it
and
better.
do nothing while Americans find the American dream dream of homeownership completely unaffordable. Now,
Biden literally has been building 2 million
immediately
homes.
Change the equation for American citizens if you lower energy prices. As Donald Trump says, drill, baby, drill. One of the biggest drivers of housing costs, aside from illegal immigration, is, think about it. If a truck driver's paying 40% more for diesel, then the lumber he's delivering to the job site to build the house is also going to become a lot more expensive. If we open up American energy, you will get immediate
Electric
pricing
vehicles are
relief,
going to drive down the price of gas because the
American
demand
citizens,
on gas is going to go down.
not, by the way, just in housing, but in a whole host of other economic goods,
Jesus Christ.
Senator Vance, you still have 23 seconds there. Do you want to answer?
Can I have it?
Where, yeah. Governor, we will get to you in a moment. But Senator, where are you going to seize the federal lands? Can you clarify?
Well, what Donald Trump said is we
with
have
you,
a lot of federal
100% I
lands
agree
that
with
aren't
you.
being used for anything. They're not being used for national park. They're not being used, and they could be places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be opening up building in this country. We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, I do want to let you respond to the allegation that the vice president is letting in
Well, of course, that's not true. And again, you have the facts. I guess we
prices.
agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. That, look, crossings are down compared to when Donald Trump left office. But it's, again, blaming and not trying to find the solution. I was going to ask, though, on this question, are we going to drill and build houses in the same federal land? And I think when people hear federal lands, these are really important pieces of land. Now, Minnesota doesn't have a lot of federal lands. I know in the western part of the countries we do. There's not a lot of federal lands in and around Minneapolis, for example. So the issue is I don't understand the federal lands issue unless we see this, and I worry about this as someone who cares deeply about our national parks and our federal lands. Look, Minnesota, we protect these things. We've got about 20% of the world's fresh water. These lands protect. They're there for a reason. They belong to all of us. But again, this is when you view housing and you view these things as commodities. Like, there's a chance to make money here. Let's take this federal land and let's sell it to people for that. I think there's better ways to do this. We've seen it in Minnesota. We're able to refurbish some of these houses. We're able to make some investments. That gets people in. And I'm still on the fact on this. Economists, Senator Vance, you said you don't like the economists. Which economists are saying that it is immigrants that's adding to the cost?
Governor, your time is up. But Senator, on that point, I'd like for you to clarify. There are many contributing factors to high housing costs. What evidence do you have that migrants are part of this problem?
Well, there's a Federal Reserve study that we're happy to share after the debate. We'll put it up on social media, actually, that really drills down on the connection between increased levels of migration, especially illegal immigration, and higher housing prices. Now, of course, Margaret, that's not the entire driver of higher housing prices.
I'm going to need to see that.
It's also the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. Look, we are a country of builders. We're a country of doers. We're a country of explorers. But we increasingly have a federal administration that makes it harder to develop our resources, makes it harder to build things, and wants to throw people in jail for not doing everything exactly as Kamala Harris says they have to do. And what that means is that you have a lot of people who would love to build homes who aren't able to build homes.
Kamala Harris is literally trying to cut regulations for permitting on houses.
That is most turned housing into a commodity is giving it
it's
away
the
to millions
PRO
upon
program,
millions
PRO.
of people who have
Look
no
that shit
legal
up.
right to be here.
What are the federal regulations? I deal with this as a governor.
You can very quickly reply.
I'm sorry. I get this as a governor, and I don't necessarily disagree with that in some cases, many of those are local, many of them are state. I don't know which ones are federal, but I think whenever we talk regulations, people think they can get rid of them. I think you want to be able to get out of your house in a fire. I think you want to make sure that it's fireproof and those types of things. So which are the regulations? Because
bring up the fact that she's cutting the
not
permits.
responsible for those. Congress writes those.
Governor, thank you. Gentlemen, we have a lot to get
It's
to.
a
You're
much better
passionate about the
conversation,
housing
though.
crisis, I can tell. But Nora?
Thank you. One of the top problems facing Americans is the high cost of health care. Senator Vance, at the last presidential debate, former President Trump was asked about replacing the Affordable Care Act. In response, he said,
"Oh God," he's like, "I'm so screwed."
Of a plan. Since then, Senator, you've talked about changing how chronically ill Americans get health insurance. Can you explain how that would work? And can you guarantee that Americans with pre-existing conditions won't pay more? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, of course, we're going to cover Americans with pre-existing conditions. In fact, a lot of my family members have gotten health care. I believe, members of my family actually got private health insurance, at least for the first time, switched off of Medicaid onto private insurance for the first time under Donald Trump's leadership. And I think that a lot of people have criticized this
with the
concept of
Affordable
a
Care
counter
Act?
mark. It's very
That's
simple
literally
common
what
sense. I think
his
Tim Walz
fucking
knows
health
from
care
12 years
was.
in Congress. You're not going to propose a 900-page bill standing on a debate stage. It would bore everybody to tears, and it wouldn't actually mean anything because part of this is the give and take of bipartisan negotiation. Now, when Donald Trump was actually president, and again, he has a record to be proud of, prescription drugs fell in 2018 for the first time in a very long time. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, prescription drugs are up about 7%. Under Donald Trump's entire 4 years, they were up about 1.5%. He introduced pricing transparency. Think about healthcare. You go into a hospital, you try to buy something, and nobody knows what it actually costs. That price transparency will actually give American consumers a little bit more choice, and will also drive down costs.
I actually think he's correct about that.
And we talked about, the reinsurance regulations is what I was talking about. Look, Donald Trump has said that if we allow states to experiment a little bit on how to cover both the chronically ill but the non-chronically ill, it's not just a plan. He actually implemented some of these regulations when he was president of the United States. And I think you can make a really good argument that it salvaged Obamacare, which was doing disastrously until Donald Trump came along.
What?
I think this is an important point about President Trump. Of course, you don't have to agree with everything that President Trump has ever said or ever done. But when Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and health care costs, Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way
John
to
McCain
ensure
stopped
that
him.
Americans had access to affordable care.
It's literally why he
perfect,
made
of
fun
course,
of John
and there's
McCain.
So much more that we can do, but I think that Donald Trump has earned the right to put in place some better health care policies.
He couldn't get his
He's
arm
earned
up.
it because he did it successfully the first time.
Governor?
All right, here's where being an old guy gives you some history. I was there at the creation of the ACA. And the reason it was so important is I come from a major
did he say private
healthcare
insurance,
state,
Rocket?
home of the Mayo Clinic, home to Medical Alley, 3M, Medtronic,
Maybe I was
all
just-
of those.
I'm
We
not
understand healthcare. It's why we're ranked first on affordability and accessibility and quality of healthcare. And so what
Jay
I know
might
is
be
under
right. I might
Kamala
have got
Harris,
triggered.
more people are covered than they have before. And those of you listening, this is critical to you. Now, Donald Trump all of a sudden wants to go back and remember this. He ran on the first thing he was going to do on day one was to repeal Obamacare. On day one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA. He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save
Thank
that
you.
bill.
Thank you.
Now, fast forward. What that means to you is you lose your pre-existing conditions. If you're sitting at home and you got asthma, too bad. If you're a woman, probably not. Broke your foot during football, might kick you out. Your kids get kicked out when they're 26. Kamala Harris negotiated drug prices for the first time with Medicare. We have 10 drugs that will come online, the most common ones that'll be there. But look, this issue, and when Donald Trump said, I've got a concept of a plan, it cracked me up as a fourth grade teacher because my kids would have never given me that. But what Senator Vance just
Even
explained
JD wants to
might be
laugh at
worse than a
that.
concept. Because what he explained is pre-Obamacare. And I'll make this as simple as possible because I have done this for a long time. What they're saying is, if you're healthy, why should you be paying more? So what they're going to do is let insurance companies pick who they insure, because guess what happens? You pay your premium, it's not much. They figure they're not going to have to pay out to you. But those of you a little older, gray, got cancer, you're going to get kicked out of it. That's why the system didn't work.
That's the problem with
Kamala Harris
private
will
insurance,
protect and enhance the ACA.
Governor, thank you. Senator, you have not yet explained how you would protect people with pre-existing conditions or laid out that plan.
I like that look
currently
from Tim
have
Walz.
laws and regulations in place right now that protect people with pre-existing conditions.
No,
we
well,
want to keep those
the
regulations
Affordable
in
Care
place,
Act
but we
does,
also
but
want to
yeah.
make the health insurance
Not private
marketplace
insurance.
function a little bit better. Now, what Governor Walz just said
We
is
have a
actually
concept of
not
how we're gonna
true.
do that.
A lot of what happened, and the reason that Obamacare was crushing under its own weight, is that a lot of young and healthy people were leaving the exchanges. Donald Trump actually helped address that problem, and he did so in a way that preserved people's access to coverage who had pre-existing conditions. But again, something that these guys do is they make a lot of claims about if Donald Trump becomes president, all of these terrible consequences are going to ensue.
He's literally said he wants to cut the Affordable Care Act.
Inflation was low, take-home pay was higher, and he saved the very program from a Democratic administration that was collapsing and would have collapsed.
It's like literally the same.
His leadership.
It's actually better.
His job, which is govern in a bipartisan way and get results, not just complain about problems, but actually solve them.
Governor, did enrollment under the Affordable Care Act go up under the Trump administration?
It's higher now that we've seen it go up. Look, people are using it. The system works. And the question about this of young people,
but Donald Trump didn't want it.
Mandate piece of this, and Republicans fought tooth and nail, saying, "Well, Americans should be free."
They
to do
wanted
this.
to, yeah, Jay.
The individual mandates.
No, they wanted to, but it wasn't done through
the
executive
idea of
action.
Making sure the risk pool is broad enough to cover everyone. That's the only way insurance works. When it doesn't,
they
it
needed
collapses.
McCain
You are
to get
asking
it.
Pre-ACA where we get people out. Look, people know.
At least that's how I
they
understand
need to be
it.
on health care. People expect it to be there. And when we are able to make it, and we are making it this way, when we incentivize people to be in the market, when we help people who might not be able to afford it get there, and we make sure then when you get sick and old, it's there for you. Because I heard people say, well, I don't want to buy into Medicare or whatever. Good luck buying health care once you get past 70.
Yep.
So look,
good luck getting life insurance. Compare those two.
Kamala Harris did that.
They won't insure you at that age.
Was negotiating
for a
those
reason.
10 drugs on Medicare for the first time in American history.
Thank you. Margaret?
The one thing that I know that they did, Jay,
We have a number of subjects
is
to discuss.
they got
Margaret,
rid of the
let's talk about
penalties
families
for
in
not having
America.
I think Trump got rid of the fine for not having it. That's like that was their one big win.
And the United States is one of the very few developed countries in the world without a national paid leave program for new parents. Governor Walz, you said that if Democrats win both the White House and Congress, this is a day one priority for you. How long should employers be required to pay workers while they are home taking care of their newborns? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's negotiable, and that's what Congress worked. But here's what the deal is. Americans sitting out there right now, you may work for a big company. Look, we're home in Minnesota to some of the largest Fortune 500 companies. Kamala Harris knows that in California. Those companies provide paid family and medical leave. One is, I think they're moral and they think it's a good thing, but it also keeps their employees healthy.
Yes,
we in Minnesota has to pay family and medical leave. You have a child, and I had to go back to work 5 days after my kids were born. This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is that gets the child off to a better start, the family works better, we stay in their employers, we get more consistency in that. So Kamala Harris has made it a priority. We implemented it in Minnesota, and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state. But the negotiations on it, and here's the issue, those big companies are able to offer it. Those of you out there who don't have it, just imagine what
I think
happens
there's a
if
top
you get
5,
cancer,
Jay, is
or
what
your
I'm
child
saying.
gets sick.
Sorry.
We know what happens.
I'm trying not to
You
talk
end
too
up
much over
staying
these
home.
guys.
In some places, that means no paycheck because you've got no protection on that. This is the
I'm
case
screwing up
of
all
an
kinds of
economy
stuff.
that Donald Trump has set for the wealthiest amongst us. He's willing to give those tax breaks to the wealthiest. He's willing to say, bust those unions up, do whatever. What we're saying is the economy works best when it works for all of us.
Yes,
and so
that's what I'm
family
saying.
Medical leave program, and I will tell you, go to the families or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as childcare on this, you have to take it at both the supply and the demand side. You can't expect the most important people in our lives to take either our children or our parents to get paid the least amount of money. And we have to make it easier for folks to be able to get into that business and then to make sure that folks are able to pay for that. We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family and medical leave and help with this will enhance our workforce, enhance our families, and make it easier to have the children that you want.
Governor,
paternal leave specifically.
Senator, do you support
paternal
a
leave
national
needs to be
paid
longer.
leave
Maternal,
program?
obviously,
And if
but
so,
paternal also.
for
Don't
how
forget about the
long
men.
Should employers be
like they deserve
mandated
to be with their
to pay
kids
their
too.
employees while they are home taking care of their newborn? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, first of all, Margaret, a number of my Republican colleagues and some Democrats, too, have worked on this issue. And I think there is a bipartisan solution here because a lot of us care about this issue. I mean, look, I speak from this very personally because I'm married to a beautiful woman who's an incredible mother to our 3 beautiful kids, but is also a very, very brilliant corporate litigator. And I'm so proud of her. but being a working mom, even for somebody with all of the advantages of my wife, is extraordinarily difficult. And it's not just difficult from a policy perspective. She actually had access to paid family leave because she worked for a bigger company.
Yeah, she worked
for
a huge company.
On young families, and especially
company,
young women,
huge.
I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time home with the kids. Some would like to spend longer at home with the kids. We should have a family care model that makes choice possible. And I think this is a very important substantive difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's approach. I mean, look, if you look at the federal programs that we have that support paid family leave right now, the Community Development Block Grant, and there's another block grant program that spends a lot of money from the federal government. These programs only go to one kind of child care model.
Agree.
Let's say you'd like your church maybe to help you out with child care. Maybe you live in a rural area or an urban area and you'd like to get together with families in your neighborhood to provide child care in the way that makes the most sense. You don't get access to any of these federal monies. We want to promote choice in how we deliver family care and how we promote child care because, look, it is unacceptable. And, you know, of course, Tim and I have been on the campaign trail a lot the past 7 or 8 weeks. And one of the biggest complaints I hear from young families is people who feel like they don't have options, like they're choosing between going to work or taking care for their kids. That is an incredible burden to put on American families. We're the only country that does it. I think we could do a heck of a lot better.
Yeah, I agree actually with what he's saying, but there needs to be a basic foundation.
Vance, many things about
it shouldn't
the American
dip below
family.
a certain percentage.
The
It shouldn't just be
Federal
choice
Reserve
based
says
off your wealth.
Will spend nearly as much on child care as they do on housing each month. So I want to get your thoughts on this. President Trump recently said, as much as child care is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kinds of numbers we'll be taking in. Is President Trump committed to the $5,000 per child tax credit that you have described? You have 1 minute.
Well, what President Trump said, Margaret, I just want to defend my running mate here a little bit, is that we're going to be taking in a lot of money by penalizing companies for shipping jobs overseas and penalizing countries who employ slave laborers and then ship their products back into our country and undercut the wages of American workers. It's the heart of the Donald Trump economic plan. Cut taxes for American workers and American families. Cut taxes for businesses
and raise prices on products. This is where he's fucking up.
But penalize companies and countries that are shipping jobs overseas. That's the heart of the economic proposal. And I think what President Trump is saying is that when we bring in this
he's never going to penalize his fucking buddies, growth, dude.
We're going to be able
he
to provide
doesn't do that.
paid family leave, child care options that are
he
viable
didn't
and
do that when he was
for a lot
president.
of American families.
Can you clarify how that will solve the child care shortage?
Well, because as Tim said, a lot of the child care shortage is we just don't have enough resources going into the multiple people who could be providing family care options. And we're going to have to, unfortunately, look, we're going to have to spend more money. We're going to have to induce more people to want to provide child care options for American families. Because the reason it's so expensive right now is because you've got way too few people providing this very essential service.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz,
that's not the reason.
Ticket also has some child care.
The reason is that people don't have the money to pay for child care.
Will agree to the $6,000 credit for newborns and $3,000 credit for children over the age of 6, as your campaign has promised. Is that realistic?
Well, if these members of Congress are listening to anybody, I can tell you, and this is the biggest issue. Everybody listening tonight knows. I mean, I'm sure they were shocked to hear it's not that expensive. And let's be clear, whether it's $5,000 or $6,000, that pays you about 3 or 4 months. Let's be clear of where we're at on this. It's because we got out of an imbalance on this. We thought we were going to get by not paying people. I don't think Senator Vance and I are that far apart. I'm not opposed to what he's talking about on options. We've done scholarships types of things. I think we need to be open to making the case. But the issue here is, the question you asked is, you're not going to pay for it with these tariffs. That's just adding another $4,000 on the family and taking less. So not only do they not get the money to pay for that, they're $4,000 in the hole. That's Wharton School. That's his alma mater. And so I think the issue here is, those members of Congress, I can't believe they're not. When I go to businesses, sure, they'll talk about taxes sometime, but they will lead with childcare and they will lead with housing, because we know the problem is, especially in a state like Minnesota, we need more workers because our economy's growing, but we need the workforce.
Yep.
Governor, thank you. We need to move on. Nora?
Dude, it's
Let's
common
talk about the state
sense.
of democracy, the top issue for Americans after the economy and inflation. After the 2020 election, President Trump's campaign and others filed 62 lawsuits contesting the results.
My battery's low.
Judges, including those appointed by President Trump and other Republican presidents, looked at the evidence and said there was no widespread fraud. The governors of every state in the nation, Republicans and Democrats, certified the 2020 election results and sent a legal slate of electors to Congress for January 6th.
Thank you.
Senator
Good
Vance,
job.
You have said you would not have certified the last presidential election and would have asked the states to submit alternative electors. That has been called unconstitutional and illegal. Would you again seek to challenge this year's election results, even if every governor certifies the results? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, Nora, first of all, I think that we're focused on the future. We need to figure out how to solve the inflation crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies, make housing affordable, make groceries affordable, and that's what we're focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask
No,
it.
you don't.
Look, what President Trump has said is that there were problems in 2020, and my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square, and that's all I've said, and that's all that Donald Trump has said. Remember,
no,
he
it's
said
not
that on
everything
January
he
the
said.
6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president.
Answer the fake
Donald
electors
Trump left
question.
The White House,
He don't want to answer
and now,
it.
of course, unfortunately, we have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden administration.
Answer the fake electors
I believe
question.
that we actually do have a threat to democracy in this country, but unfortunately, it's not the threat to democracy that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the threat of censorship. It's Americans casting aside lifelong friendships
he's
because
pulling
of
this shit from
disagreements
X
over
right
politics.
now.
It's big technology companies silencing their fellow citizens, and it's Kamala Harris saying that rather than debate and persuade
Peter
her
Thiel
fellow
is your fucking
Americans,
sugar
she'd
daddy,
like to
dog.
censor people who engage
Elon
in
Musk is your
misinformation.
fucking
I think
Trump's
that is a
buddy.
much bigger threat to democracy than anything that we've seen in
The
this
two
country
biggest tech
in the last 4
billionaires.
years, in the last 40 years. Now, I'm really proud, especially given that I was raised by two lifelong blue-collar Democrats, to have the endorsement of Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong leaders in the Democratic
They're not
coalition.
lifelong
Of course,
Democrats,
they
dude.
don't agree with me and Donald Trump on every issue. We don't have to agree on every issue, but we're united behind
Tulsi
the
Gabbard is
basic
literally in
American
Fox
First
News.
Amendment principle that we ought to debate our differences. We ought to argue about them. We ought to try to persuade our fellow Americans. Kamala Harris is engaged in censorship at an industrial scale. She did it during COVID. She's done it over a number of other issues, and that to me is a much bigger threat to democracy
than
what
overturning
Donald
an
Trump
election?
said when he said that protesters
Then
should peacefully
overturning an
protest on January
election?
the 6th.
Governor?
That's insanity.
Well, I've enjoyed tonight's debate, and I think there was a lot of commonality here. And I'm sympathetic to misspeaking on things, and I think I might have with the senator.
Me too, man.
There's one though that this one is troubling to me, and I say that because I think we need to tell the story. Donald Trump refused to acknowledge this, and the fact is that I don't think we can be the frog in the pot and let the boiling water go up. He was very clear. I mean, he lost this election, and he said he didn't. 140 police officers were beaten at the Capitol that day, some with the American flag. Several later died. And it wasn't just in there. In Minnesota, a group gathered on the state Capitol grounds in St. Paul and said, we're marching to the governor's residence and there may be casualties. The only person there was my son and his dog, who was rushed out crying by state police. That issue, and Mike Pence standing there as they were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Mike Pence made the right decision. So, Senator, it was adjudicated over and over and over. I worked with kids long enough to know, and I said as a football coach, sometimes you really want to win, but the democracy is bigger than winning an election.
I'll move it all the way over here.
You shake hands, and then you try and do everything you can to help the other side win. That's what was at stake here. Now, the thing I'm most concerned about is the idea that imprisoning your political opponents, already laying the groundwork for people not accepting this. And a president's words matter. A president's words matter. People hear that. So I think this issue of settling our differences at the ballot box, shaking hands when we lose, being honest about it, but to deny what happened on January 6th,
100%.
the first time in American history that a president or anyone tried to overturn a fair election and the peaceful transfer of power. And here we are 4 years later in the same boat. I will tell you this, that when this is over, we need to shake hands this election and the winner needs to be the winner. This has got to stop. It's tearing our country apart.
Good job, Tim.
Margaret?
Good job, Tim.
Senator Vance, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, well, look, Tim, first of all, it's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January the 20th, as we have done for 250 years in this country. We are going to shake hands after this debate and after this election. And of course, I hope that we win, and I think we're going to win. But if Tim Walz is the next vice president, he'll have my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants it. But we have to remember that for years in this country, Democrats protested the results of elections. Hillary Clinton,
not
in
even
2016,
close,
said that Donald Trump had the election stolen by Vladimir Putin because the Russians bought like $500,000 worth of Facebook ads.
No.
This has been going on for a long time.
Dude, he is being so dishonest about the Mueller report right now.
I'm on board. But if we want to say, as Tim Walz is saying, that this is just a
34 indictments, 7 convictions. How many pardons?
January 6th was not Facebook ads. And I think a revisionist history on this. Look, I don't understand how we got to this point. But the issue was
Thank you, Redonk. 5 new members. Nana, Gulf, Catherine, James, congrats.
Massive repercussions. This idea that there's censorship to stop people from threatening to kill someone, threatening to do something, that's not censorship.
No.
Censorship is book banning. We've seen that. We've seen that brought up. I just think for everyone tonight, and I'm going to thank Senator Vance. I think this is the conversation they want to hear. And I think there's a lot of agreement. But this is one that we are miles apart on. This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen.
Exactly.
And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future.
Oh.
Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
That's a bad answer, JD.
Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds.
People don't understand what the First Amendment is.
Long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another.
Look
let's
at him.
argue about ideas, and then let's come together.
Take it to censorship because he knows that's what gets him riled up.
That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't wear masks.
Senator, the governor does have the
floor. He used their terms of service. That's not the same. It's a private company.
Criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Senator, the governor does have the floor for 1 minute to respond to you.
Yeah. Well, I don't run Facebook. What I do know is I see a candidate out there who refused, and now again, and this I'm pretty shocked by this. He lost the election. This is not a debate. It's not anything anywhere other than in Donald Trump's world. Because look, when Mike Pence made that decision to certify that election, that's why Mike Pence isn't on this stage. What I'm concerned about is, where is the firewall with Donald Trump? Where is the firewall if he knows he could do anything, including taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it? That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office?
That was crazy.
Even if the president doesn't. And I think Kamala Harris would agree. She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that. Because of course that's what we would
Paul.
do. So America,
have a good night,
I think
Paul.
you've got a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Governor, your time is up. Thank you, gentlemen. We will be right back with both of our candidates, the CBS News Vice Presidential.
Dude, that right there is probably the best moment of this debate. JD Vance could not say that Donald Trump lost the election. I'm going to continue to say this over and over again. The biggest difference between this debate and the other debate is that Donald Trump is there. I keep seeing you guys say, oh, well, it's a better debate because it's it's Walz versus Vance. No, like, literally at this point, this debate should be Kamala versus JD, or Kamala versus Ron DeSantis, or Kamala versus Nikki Haley. That's what this debate should be. The common denominator is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the problem, and Donald Trump is the one running for president. If this debate was Kamala versus anybody other than Donald Trump, that debate would still be a good debate. You can't debate Donald Trump unless you're willing to make it a circus. If Kamala Harris had a debate against any other Republican candidate, you would have the same debate you have now. I like Tim Walz. I think Tim Walz is dope. I would vote for him for president. But Kamala Harris isn't the catalyst for why things are messed up. It's Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump. He is the common factor. Like, look, I'm all good for you. Well, he doesn't have the experience yet, Jay. What I'm saying is, in our current political atmosphere, I think that he'd be a good choice compared to all the things that were being offered. But I think it's unfair to Kamala Harris to say, oh, well, because this conversation that's happening up until about 5 minutes ago between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz is a better conversation because Harris and Trump are bad candidates. No, Trump is a bad candidate. It is unfair to Kamala Harris to say she's bad because of the debate they had. She did her part in that debate. She did exactly, like when we watched the Biden versus Trump debate, I said Biden should have never tried to talk about numbers. Biden should have never tried to talk about statistics. Biden should have just said, you're a felon. You have been held liable for sexual abuse. You have convicted 34 felonies. You have tried to overturn the government, because that's how you win debates with Donald Trump. He is he's way wet behind the ears. But he did a great job. Walz started off really slowly and really awkwardly. And I would even say that first question that both of them got, they both dodged that question pretty much, right? Like, neither one of them really answered that question. Walz attempted to answer it in a way of saying, like, yo, we support our allies, and you can, like, infer that he's saying, if they did it, we'd be okay with it. And Vance did the same thing. But ever since that first question, Walz has picked up steam and done an incredibly good job of presenting common sense answers to questions. And he's answered a lot of questions. And to be honest with you, I've said this before. I said this before this debate even happened. I said J.D. Vance is going to do a much better job than Donald Trump did. Because Donald Trump is the worst person out of all of these people to be the president of the United States of America. Literally, J.D. Vance would be a better president. Literally, Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis would be a better president. Donald Trump is the worst pick out of any politician that you can name right now. Shit, I don't know who I would vote for between MTG and Donald Trump. I might vote for MTG over Donald Trump. Walz picked up steam because he literally did what J.D. Vance talked about. He's a common sense pick. All right, I'm going to let you guys listen to these guys instead of me.
Time for the closing statement. Senator Vance won the virtual coin toss and elected to go last. So, Governor Walz, you are first. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Senator Vance. Thank you to CBS News. And most importantly, thank you to all of you. If you're still up and the folks who miss Dancing with Our Stars, I appreciate it.
Hold on, ask me after the closing,
support of the
Jay.
democracy matters. It matters that you're here. And I'm as surprised as anybody of this coalition that Kamala Harris has built, from Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift, and a whole bunch of folks in between there. And they don't all agree on everything, but they are truly optimistic people. They believe in a positive
yes, I
future
believe
of this
so,
country,
Jay.
And one where our politics can be better than it is.
I could be wrong
and I
about
have to tell you, that better than it is the sense of optimism that there can be an opportunity economy that works for everyone, not just to get by, but to get ahead. And the idea that freedom really means something. Not the freedom of government to be in your bedroom or exam room,
AJ says no.
but the freedom for you to make choices about yourself. Now, look, we all know who Donald Trump is. He's told us.
I know the
and as
other
Maya
way
Angelou
around it's
said,
true. Two
believe him
vice
when he
presidents
told you
can
that.
win a presidency.
His first inaugural address talked about American carnage. And then he spent 4 years trying to maybe do that. Senator Vance tonight made it clear he will stand with Donald Trump's agenda. He will continue to push down that road. Excuse me. Kamala Harris gives us a different option. Now, I'll have to tell you, I'm going to be careful about the quotes, but there's one that Senator Vance said that does resonate with me. He said, Donald Trump makes the people I care about afraid. A lot of America feels that way. We don't need to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right. All we have to fear is fear itself. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class, and she's centering you at the heart of that. All the while asking everyone, join this movement, make your voices heard. Let's look for a new day where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance to thrive. I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th for Kamala Harris.
Governor Walz, thank you. Senator Vance, your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank Governor Walz, you folks at CBS, and of course the American people for tuning in this evening. And one of the issues we didn't talk about was energy. And I remember when I was being raised by my grandmother, when she didn't have enough money to turn on the heat some nights because Ohio gets pretty cold at night, and because money was often very tight. And I believe, as a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a rich and prosperous enough country where every American, whether they're rich or poor, ought to be able to turn on their heat.
Brother, I had no heating or air conditioning.
That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl. And that, too, has gotten harder with because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse. Now, I believe that we have the most beautiful country in the world. I meet people on the campaign trail who can't afford food, but have the grace and generosity to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What
they can't afford food, but they have all this Trump merchandise on.
The most beautiful country, the most incredible people anywhere in the world. But they're not going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington. They're not going to be able to live their American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We need change. We need a new direction. We need a president
change. No, you're right.
Done this once
we do need change.
We
don't need Trump.
Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Senator Vance, thank you. And thank you both for participating in the only vice presidential debate of this election cycle. I'm Margaret Brennan.
And I'm Nora O'Donnell. And a reminder, there are just 35 days until Election Day.
35 days, guys. I'm going to move my mic. I'm really sorry for the noise. It sucks when I move my mic. If you guys got any questions, now's the time. I'll stay on a little bit longer to answer any questions. What I have to say about that is this should actually show to you just what I was just saying during that last commercial break. I get it. I understand that people wanted, like, entertainment. And Trump provided that. Like, Trump provided, like, a Maury Povich, Jerry Springer, like, staying home from school sick, laying on the couch, you're not really sick, you're eating popsicles because you said your throat's sore, you got pizza, you got those little pizza pockets, pizza rolls, and you're watching Maury Povich and Jerry Springer. And that's what Donald Trump did. Donald Trump brought in this entertainment value. He brought people in that never voted in their lives and made them want to vote on both sides. People that he said, oh my God, I got to vote against this guy. And people that were like super entertained by who he was as a person. That's why his reality TV personality. And he entertained those people, and that's why they still vote for him. Because they don't have any actual reason to want to vote for him. Almost everything that J.D. Vance said were J.D. Vance's ideas. They weren't Donald Trump's ideas. He's constantly Trump-splaining. He's constantly saying things that Donald Trump has never said. He's constantly saying, oh, no, okay, well, he said he has a concept of a plan. Well, actually, this is what he means by that. And look, I think J.D. Vance is a weird motherfucker, to be honest with you. I don't think J.D. Vance represents the values that I would want in a president. I don't think that J.D. Vance is 100% honest about what they're going to do when they become presidents, because we've heard what J.D. Vance has said on phone calls, on podcasts, in interviews that all conflict with the things that he just said. But he's still 1,000 times better of a candidate than the guy that's actually running. And that should actually concern you. That should concern you that the person that was chosen to be the Republican primary candidate is not the best person in their party to do that. You may not like Kamala Harris, but Kamala Harris is on par with the majority of candidates in the Democratic Party if she is not the best. And by the way, as I've said before, in 2020, I thought she was the best. So I'm willing to make the argument that she was. Oh, I said I was going to say something about migrant housing. So when we talk about migrant housing, R's wife, because you said in your spot, night DJ, appreciate you. When you're talking about migrant housing, are you talking about immigrants that are here on visas, or are you talking about the immigrants that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are talking about? Because when I say migrants aren't buying houses, I don't mean migrants on visas, like people that are coming over here and going to university and then staying or even overstaying their visas. I'm specifically talking about who Trump and Vance are talking about. Like, there aren't a bunch of Haitian immigrants that barely got over here, that are barely able to work at, like, warehouses and stuff like this, and then they're going and buying these houses that everyday average Americans can't. That's what I'm going with. Are you seeing more than that? Illegals that have been here for a decade or two. So are you saying they're still illegal, or are you saying that are they working on their citizenship? Because, like, you can't get a loan from a bank without, like, I had to have how many years? I think 6 years worth of bank statements to get a loan. I'm not even saying I'm right about this, R's wife. I'm trying to figure out how that would be possible. Like, if you drive around my county, there's 100% chance, and Redon can verify this for you. There's 100% chance there are no illegal immigrants that own houses anywhere in this area. Even in where I grew up in a much poorer area, and no, there's and that's California. Maybe it's different in California, but I would think that there would still be. Oh, no. I was saying buying houses, R's wife. You're saying they're renting the houses. So there are houses where they rent a space for like $100 a week and they stay there for years and save up cash. No, I don't disagree with that. Yeah. Okay, yeah, exactly. Redunk, that's what I was trying to figure out. When I made that statement, R's wife, I was saying they bought them? How did they buy them, though? They are at the house, they rent a space for and then they save up the money. But if they're undocumented, yeah, you can't own a house. You can't own a house as an undocumented immigrant in California. I would have to look at that. I'm not sure what state, R's wife. I don't want to dox you. I try not. I tell everybody I'm from California, but I don't want anybody else to know where anybody else is from. Are you in Michigan, R's wife? Everybody here is in Michigan. Maryland. I would have to look into Maryland's laws, because I'm willing to bet that those immigrants don't own the house. I'm willing to bet that somebody else bought the house and is subletting it. Yeah, exactly. So this is like one of those things that I think is like greatly misunderstood about like immigrants and stuff like that. And that's like specifically here in California, I know a lot about it, is that how much undocumented immigrants get taken advantage of, right? And so, like, people will buy houses here in California, and then they'll sublet them to undocumented immigrants because they can't call them out for the things that they do. They can't, like, report the fact that they don't fix any things. Like what was happening, what they're claiming was happening in Aurora, is the type of thing that I would talk about. Something where you have a landlord that knows that there's undocumented immigrants that live inside the house or the apartments, and so they charge them rent, which isn't super exorbitant because they can't pay super exorbitant rates, but they make their money by not fixing anything in the apartment complex. I would have to look into that. I don't want to sit here and say that's not happening, because obviously your anecdotal evidence outweighs my no evidence at all. But my anecdotal evidence for where I'm at, immigrants cannot buy homes. There's no way, dude. Like, getting a loan from a bank after 2009 was like, it was insane. Like, we went from 2009, where literally, if you told me in 2008 that immigrants were getting loans, I'd 100% believe that. But in 2009 and forward from that point, like when I got my loan for my home, which was in 2012, early 2012, it was incredibly hard for me to get a loan. Incredibly hard for me to get a loan. I had to go through, like, I think it was like, I want to say, like, it was something like, was it 4 years or 6 years of bank statements to prove that, like, my realtor told me at the time, she said, do not put a large amount of money in your bank account and do not pull out a large money out of your bank account, because if you do that, they will deny you the loan. Like, that's how crazy it was for me to get a loan. Like, if I would have made won $5,000 from the lottery, she would have told me, keep that money, do not put it in your bank account, because they'll deny you the loan. She's like, don't go buy a refrigerator for like $1,600 right now. She's like, if you want to buy a refrigerator, buy it after you got the loan. Like, that's how crazy it is, at least where I'm from. So this is what I agree with. For the most part, and this is something what Jay was saying that I do wish Walz would have name-checked him, right? Walz at the beginning of the debate did say, we need to stop corporations from buying up all these houses that's creating an artificial housing crisis. That's the goddamn truth. And I do wish he would have just straight up said BlackRock. He didn't. And I believe that's because BlackRock does donate, like, pretty heavily, I think, to the Democratic Party. I could be wrong about that. But that's the real housing crisis. The real housing crisis is that you have places like BlackRock buying up like swaths of housing, and they buy them cheap, pennies on the dollar. They wait until houses are foreclosing and stuff. And then the other part of the housing crisis, as I understand it, is that, well, there's two. One's going to be very specific to California. One is specific probably across the United States of America, but mostly in places that don't have anti-Airbnb laws. One of the problems with housing right now is that people are buying up housing, and instead of selling the houses, they make so much more money off Airbnb-ing a house that they keep the house. So people that would potentially be selling houses, flipping houses, don't flip houses anymore because they use them from Airbnbs, because Airbnbs are so profitable. The other part with California, that's specific to California, is actually a Democrat problem. It's a liberal problem, because liberals actually elect liberal governors, liberal senators, liberal congresspeople, all that say that they want to do something about the housing problem. But then when that person gets into office and says, okay, we're going to build housing, and they say what we're going to do is we're going to build this 8-story apartment complex in your neighborhood, people are like, oh, no, not in my neighborhood. So you have one of these problems where people that are liberal people in their values don't express them when it actually affects them. Other problems in California is that that actually also affects school funding, because school funding is determined by zip codes. So the housing, how much housing is worth within zip codes, is also how much the school gets funded. That's why you have really weird school districting and stuff like that. So they don't want to have low-income housing within a certain zip code, because then that brings down the total funding from the for the schools. So, like, housing is, in my opinion, much more complicated than just, like, immigrants are buying the houses, right? All you know is they were for sure houses for sale, and then they were in the houses. You don't know if they found a citizen to do it for them. They just know the houses are not legal. Yeah, most likely ours wife, I'm going to be honest with you, like I said, I don't want to say you're wrong because you could be right. But the most likely thing to be happening, in my opinion, because I see this happening to immigrants in California, is that people buy these houses and then they sublet or they rent, but then people within those houses sublet out to other people because it's a hierarchy, right? Like the person owns a house, he rents out to a person that then takes advantage of like immigrants, right? Because they can't report any of these things because they'll get deported, depending on their status actually. But that's as I understand it. I could be wrong though. Yeah, they just turned it into an Airbnb. The bigger crisis is that, in my opinion. You hate the house flippers, Tiki? Let's see. Yeah, illegally subletting a house per head is big money. It's huge. Some of these immigrant housing places. So I lived in a city of about 12,000 people when I lived down south, and it was nothing but legal immigrants for the most part. But there was also undocumented immigrants that would come in and work the fields, and they would charge them for housing, and they'd make them like stay like 15 to like a 3-bedroom house. So there'd be like a 3-bedroom house, and then they'd have like 15 to 20 immigrants that would have to share this house, and they'd all have to pay for the housing. If they didn't, they would have it detracted from their wages. I would bet that most likely what you're seeing there is, once again, top-down greed, because the laws that generally would keep you from doing this to legal citizens of America do not apply to undocumented, because they do apply in the legal sense, but the undocumented immigrants, most of the time, even if they're under like not visas, but even if they're there under parole, they still won't report because they don't want to get in trouble. Like, this is why it's like when people say undocumented immigrants commit the most crime, they're fucking dumb. I was going to use the R word, but they're dumb. They're morons, because undocumented immigrants literally try to create the least amount of issues so that way they do not get deported. The whole point is to stay here as long as possible. And, you know, obviously committing crimes will get you deported. Yeah, even a double wide, sometimes apartments too. Apartments, motel rooms, stuff like that too. Yeah. I think that Tim Walz did a really good job, to be honest with you. I thought that, like, if I wasn't cemented for voting for Kamala before this debate, I would be now. I will say, as I said before the debate, I thought that J.D. Vance would do a better job than Donald Trump did in the debate. I was correct about that, in my opinion. I think that in watching this debate, the most important thing that every single person should take from this is that at one point or another in our politics, this is what debates used to look like. Debates used to be people going, now I understand what my fellow senator over here says, and I agree in part with most of the things that he's saying. The biggest difference is that we believe we'll get it done and he won't, right? Like, that's what debates are supposed to be. And as I pointed out a lot of times on this channel, is that we need to take accountability. The reason politics are what they are today, you can't lay all the blame at politicians' feet. Some of it is constituents, because people as a whole never cared about debates. People as a whole never cared about political candidates. People as a whole said things like all politicians are corrupt, both sides of the worst. People wanted to be entertained, and they got entertained. And this is what you get for that. You got entertained, and now you have this mess that was made by the dude that entertained you, and that is Donald Trump. At the beginning of this debate, to be honest with you guys, most people were saying things like, this isn't really what I want to watch. Like, oh, great, vice presidents, who cares? Not everybody, but some people were. And what you take from that is the understanding that people don't want to hear about policy. People want to see one dude own the other dude. People want to see a shouting match. People want to see Jerry Springer bullshit. But what we saw tonight, I have a hard time giving credit to J.D. Vance right now because of how J.D. Vance ended. If J.D. Vance If J.D. Vance at the end of that debate looked at Tim Walz and said, I respect the decisions of the American people, Donald Trump lost that election, and we all know he did, I would right now be saying that J.D. Vance did a pretty good job. But because of the way that J.D. Vance decided to end that debate by being dishonest, it almost negates everything that he did before that. It's a lot like being the victim of an abuser. If you treat me well after I think that you did something wrong to me, you've wronged me, but then you treat me well for a while. But then it comes to a time where you need to prove to me that you've changed, that you've given up on the sauce. You're no longer the abuser that you were before. And you abuse me again, you're still that person and you never changed. You just said all those nice things because you wanted me to vote for you, because you wanted me to think you were a good person. My opinion of that debate is J.D. Vance in many ways had a chance to set himself up as a successor in the Republican Party, not MAGA, in the Conservative Party, because he didn't go full MAGA tonight. He didn't appeal to MAGA the way that Donald Trump does. In fact, he used too many words. How many MAGA supporters do you really think watched that debate? Almost none. Almost none. They're just going to wait to be told that he did a good job and he beat Tim Walz. So he had a chance to set himself up as a successor in the Conservative Party, not MAGA. And in the end, he decided to throw it out the window, as so many conservatives have done up to this point. So many conservatives. Brian Kemp literally was like, you know what? You're not going to endorse me. I'm not going to endorse you. That's fine. And then Trump came out and went, okay, fine. Fine, you're okay. And then Kemp went, all right, fine, okay. I love Donald Trump. Don't clip that. J.D. Vance did the same thing. So many of these conservatives nowadays are willing to stand up in like faux courage to act like, oh, I'm going to stand against Donald Trump. Mitch McConnell did it. Ted Cruz never did it. Ted Cruz is actually just a bitch. Who else has done it? Mitch McConnell did it. God, there's not very many. Nancy Mace did it at first. Hell, even MTG said January 6th was an insurrection, was a riot at the very beginning, said it was wrong. Like, these people are so goddamn scared of Donald Trump that they will literally have the chance to set themselves up as the next presidential candidate, and they'll toss it out the window because they're still afraid of him. They're still afraid of what he can do to them within their party, and that should concern you. That should concern you. I thought it was a really good debate. That was a very civil debate. It was a good discussion, and like I said, if J.D. Vance would have ended that by admitting that dude, all you have to do is say, yeah, Biden won. You don't even have to say Donald Trump lost. He could have said Biden won that election. That easy. That should scare you. That he can't say, yeah, Biden won. That easy. Sure, Biden won. Sure, Biden won. Shrug your shoulders. Make a face. Sure, Biden won. And he couldn't even do that much. That should concern you. All right, so I'm going to end this with saying this. I'm going to repeat something I said earlier, and I'm going to repeat it loudly for the people in the back. It's not that the Vance-Walz debate should have been the presidential debate. It is that Donald Trump is the problem in all of this. If Ron DeSantis was debating Kamala Harris, you'd be saying the same thing. If Nikki Haley was debating Kamala Harris, you'd be saying the same thing. Oh, that wasn't a bad debate, actually. I guarantee you, if it's Nikki Haley and Kamala Harris, you'd be like, that was a good debate. Like, damn, that was actually a good debate. I don't agree with conservative policy. Not all of it. There might be one or two here or there. But as I said before, a lot of my values are leaning left. My most important values are progressive values. Those are the ones I care about the most. Taking care of people, helping bring in people up, giving people equal access to rights that every human person on the earth, not just in America, but on earth, deserve. Those are my most important values. But I can agree with conservatives on a couple things here and there. Not many. But the one thing we should all agree on is that Nikki Haley is a far better candidate to be the president of the United States of America than Donald Trump ever will be. Ever. The common denominator is Donald Trump. Every single time. It was a good civil debate, and it was refreshing. All right, guys. I thank you guys so much for being here. You guys make this like so much more fun to watch this. Like it's we're building a community, man. That's what I think Tim Walz is doing. I think Tim Walz is trying to build a community. I like Tim Walz. I like what he came off with. You know? I think that America, like, it doesn't need to be like this, and I think Tim Walz is trying to show that. And in some ways, I think J.D. Vance was trying to, like, be like, wink, wink, I understand. Please let me out of the cult. Help me out. Donald Trump scares me. That's literally, it's like blink twice, dog. The whole Republican Party is being held hostage by one man right now. Blink twice. But we can't save you. You guys save yourself because you guys literally gave the gun to the dude. You guys put the gun in his hand. You're going to have to be the one that takes it away from him too. Or you can just not have a party. You can just be infested with MAGA for the rest of your political life. But we're building a community, guys. We're building a community, and I love to see it. I love seeing every one of you show up and talk to each other and have conversations. You guys are funnier than I am. You're cooler than I am. You're better people than I'll ever be. I appreciate you guys a ton. If you guys haven't watched the video or you didn't see the live stream where I made fun of the girl with the Trump tattoo on her forehead, go watch that shit. It's funny. It's 30,000 viewers funny. It's 1,400 likes funny. There's like 400 comments on that video. Go talk some shit. Have some fun. Enjoy yourselves. Go make some jokes because that's part of life. It's the balance of having a good time and being serious. Go check out the new videos. If you want to support me and my channel, you can join the channel by clicking the join button underneath the video. As my boy Redonk gave 5 of you memberships. I'm glad you guys got those memberships. Golf, you deserve it. Nana, you deserve it. Catherine, you deserve it. Everybody that is a member, I appreciate you guys so much. I ain't quitting my day job anytime soon. It pays me a lot more money than the $5 I get from YouTube for each one of these videos. It is $5 now, though. We've gotten like 5, guys. We get like $5 for these videos now. We are in the big money. But if you want to support me, you can join the channel by clicking the join button. I'm going to be here. It doesn't matter who wins president. I want Kamala to win, but I'm going to be here. It doesn't matter. But you click the join button. It's 10 cents a day, $3 a month. It's cheaper than Netflix, and it's much more entertaining. You don't have to like click around to find a video. I'm just here, and I provide the entertainment. You don't even have to. I just bring it, okay? So you can join the Ginger Army for only $3 a month. You can also super chat, or you can go to progressivematters.com/home. You can buy merchandise from my Bonfire account, or you can donate to my PayPal. And there's also a link there for you to join the Ginger Army as well. But for those of you that cannot support me financially, I completely understand. I appreciate you being here. You support me by creating a community that supports each other, that are good people, that believe in supporting good people. Thank you for everybody that goes to a terminal mode and subscribes. Thank you to all of you that goes to Dude and subscribes, to Carbon and subscribes. Keep supporting good people. We'll find our way out of this. You want me to make a $5 menu level? This might be a little too much work for me. I love you guys. I seriously do. Don't forget to support those other channels. Like, we're building a community, not just in this community, but one in America. We're creating a network of people that want to see people doing well, people that want to support other people in America. That's crazy. That's crazy to say. I came from nothing, zero, absolutely nothing, living in the dirt, homeless, taken from my fucking mom, to a Los Niños, like running from gangs, having guns pulled on me, like, and now we're creating a network that really is in some way uplifting people and supporting good people. Like, it's a hell of a thing to actually, like, it blows my mind. So keep going out there, keep supporting good people. Brian Tyler Cohen, David Packman, Adam Mockler, Gray Pill. Don't forget Gray Pill. Go like and subscribe to Gray Pill's podcast. All the good people. All right, guys. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. And we'll be back tomorrow to kind of go a little bit more on the debate. Check out all the new videos that people are putting out about it. Probably look at a statue of Trump naked again. Just, you know, I know it seems weird, but we should probably look at that again. I swear to God, it's a piñata. I think it's a piñata, dude. Someone needs to bust that thing open and see what's inside. It's probably like all of the fucking classified documents. The Donald Trump piñata is probably filled with classified documents. Guarantee it. Someone bust that shit open. All right, guys. We'll be back tomorrow, 5 o'clock Pacific. Until then, have a good night.